All right. Good day, everybody. Welcome to the BTBY Masterclass for another lovely afternoon. I am your host, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge, along with the Professor of Change herself, Brenda Ringwood. How are you, Brenda?
I am great, except for it's really cold here.
Oh, wow. Really? I'm so sorry to hear that. So, how cold is it?
It's about 20 degrees, so I'm sure you've got nicer weather in Florida.
Yeah, the only place here in Florida where it's 20 degrees is inside my freezer. So thank you. Boom ching. So we are sending some of our BTBY warmth your way there in Kansas and to wherever you guys are all around the world. Despite whatever the weather would be, we want you to still use this day to become the best version of yourself. And that's why we have the BTBY master classes. It's an opportunity for you to learn from some of the best speakers, thought leaders, and trainers that we have to offer here at BTBY. And it's all free in terms of investment of money. But when it comes to an investment of your time and an investment of the knowledge and turning that knowledge into application, well, it's priceless. So we hope that you have your pen and your pad or your favorite recording device. Brenda, hopefully they've got their favorite libation so that they can stay awake and stay focused because we are about to get this master class started. So, but before we introduce our first speaker, Brenda, what do you expect our audience to receive today?
I'm going to say that you're going to hear a lot about communication today, how to do that. How we communicate is important because if you don't communicate right, then the wrong things get communicated and then you have misunderstandings, you have hurt feelings, and that can be in business, it can be in personal relationships, it can be any type of relationship, professional, personal, at church. You just don't know what's going to happen if you don't communicate right. And a lot of misleading things happen. That's where trouble starts.
Absolutely. So we definitely want you to become the best communicator you can be. We want you to become the best speaker you can be, the best preacher you can be, the best thought leader you can be, the best person you can be in your personal relationships as well as your professional relationships. We want you to just become the best version of yourself. And we're grateful to have this wonderful platform by which we can do this, streaming through our host company, StreamYard, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to YouTube. You can go to Brenda's YouTube channel and watch us. You can go to my YouTube channel and watch us. You can go on LinkedIn and you can watch us. So there's really no excuse why you can't get this information that's going to help you to go from good to better to best, because we can't let it rest until our good becomes our better and our better becomes our best. So if you guys are ready, I see that Heather is here. Heather Davis, she's ready. Morning, y'all. Morning, Heather. We've got Jill Jacobs Reynolds. She's saying good morning. Good morning, Jill. Welcome to the masterclass. Hopefully you guys have your pen and pad because we are about to get started. So you ready, Brenda?
I am ready. I am ready. And I hope you guys pay attention because some of these guys are actually going to be at the event in October. You're going to get to meet them in person. Our next speaker, I had the pleasure of meeting him in person while I was in St. Louis. Fabulous, fabulous content. Everything he does, I've just been inspired by it. So I can't wait for you to introduce him. I can't wait for you guys to hear what he's got to say.
I can't wait for it either. Now, out of all the introductions that we could say for this person, this man wears many hats, but the number one thing that he says he likes to be known as is a child of God. And at
Amen to
BTBY,
that.
we really love that. But in addition to being a child of God, he is a dad, he's a business owner, He's a podcaster of the fabulous daily podcast called Standing Out. And he's also a branding specialist and an executive coach. And he's going to come to you today to share, as only he can, his BTBY story, how he's become the best version of himself. And if you stick and stay and listen to what he has to say, you might be on the way to becoming the best version of yourself as well. So let's welcome to the BTBY Masterclass, Mr. Trey Griggs. Trey,
good morning, guys.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on to join us at the BTBY Masterclass. Now, we're not going to hold up any time because Brenda and I, we're ready to take copious notes on what you have to share with us today on the Masterclass. So the stage...
Always have a notebook.
Absolutely. Always. And the stage is yours, Trey.
Thank you so much. Well, I'd be remiss if I also didn't clarify that I'm a husband as well to my beautiful wife, Tammy. And so it's great to be with you guys this morning. Can we start by just agreeing that we're all broken people, that there's something wrong with all of us? You know, all of us have things that we need to work on, areas where we struggle, things that are really challenging or difficult for each one of us. And a lot of that goes back to when we were kids. Now, I remember in 2011, I was in a car in Portland and I was crying. I was just bawling my eyes out. And the reason was simple. I didn't want to go into another business and try to pitch paper or toner. Now, doesn't that seem silly? But I had been dealing with so much rejection as a door-to-door salesman after a career in teaching and in ministry. I was a high school physics teacher. I was a youth pastor for a while. For 3 years, I did both. I taught 7th grade science and math and did youth ministry part-time and made the transition in 2010 into sales, which was quite the shock to the system. And so I found myself a year and a half later sitting in a car on the curb in downtown Portland crying because I didn't want to go back into another business and try to pitch paper and toner and deal with rejection again. My confidence had been completely shot. And it wasn't so much that my confidence was shot. It was actually that my confidence had struggled for years and years, but now it was finally coming to the surface in terms of real life situations. And so it took me some time to step back and say, why is this a problem? Why is self-confidence such an issue for me? You know, if you look at my resume, if you look at my life and the things that I was able to do, you wouldn't anticipate me to struggle with confidence. I grew up in a family where I played a lot of sports. I was very good at sports growing up. But at 7 years old, my parents divorced, and it threw a real kink into the system. It really threw us all for a loop, especially the kids. My sister, who's 5 years older, and I have 2 other half sisters that are 11 and 13 years older. It was a shock to the system. But life continued from that point on. I actually lived with my dad, which is a weird situation. I lived with my dad as a single dad, and just him and I. My sister, who was 12 at the time, I was 7. She actually went to live with my mom. Very weird situation. So I went from having a family and having siblings to really feeling like an only child. And what I ended up doing was I just poured myself into sports, and I was pretty good. I played on baseball teams that won Little League championships in Kansas City of a little organization called Raytown Little League that now is Raytown Sports Association. We won several championships. We won 3 out of 4 baseball championships from the age of 6 to 9. We won the basketball championship when I was 9 as well. I was on all-star teams. I was noted as a good player, and I had this resume that just continued to grow. But there was something going on during that time that was not quite right. As I got into high school, I tried out for basketball teams, and I made the JV team, freshman and JV team as a freshman. I earned a varsity letter for cross country as a freshman. I ended up playing 2 years of varsity basketball for the famous Bud Lathrop at Raytown South. I started playing golf my junior year of high school, and by my senior year, I qualified for state. I sang in musicals and in the choir. I was in the Cardinal Chorale, which was kind of the show choir back in the day where we did singing and dancing and did that. I ended up getting selected for a barbershop quartet. I sang in that my senior year of high school. I was a mediator in the school. I was the sports editor for the newspaper. I wrote. People knew who I was. On the surface, it looked like I should be a very confident person. I went to college, and many of those things continued. My freshman year, I played basketball at William Jewell College, and we made it to the Final Four of NAIA Division II, and it was an incredible experience. We lost to the eventual champion in the semifinal, but what a cool experience to go that deep in the tournament and to get that experience as a freshman in college. My sophomore year, I played golf at William Jewell, and we won our conference championship and made it to the national tournament. So in 2 years in college, I played in the NAI basketball national championship, and then I played in the NAI golf national championship. And I'm so blessed to be able to say that I played in 2 national championships in 2 sports. And I broadcasted football and basketball games on the radio station. I wrote for the newspaper and became the sports editor of my college newspaper. Again, on the surface, it looked like I would be a very confident person. But here I am sitting in Portland, Oregon, and I'm crying because I just can't face more rejection. I can't face going into another door and hearing a no. And it was at that time that I started to understand that there's really something going on. There's a difference between what's on the outside and what's on the inside. And that's why the title of my talk today is Embracing Your Past to Create Your Future. It wasn't until I was willing to embrace my past that things started to change. When I was 36 years old, I went to counseling. I finally said, I need to go talk to somebody that can help me out. And so I went to counseling. And through counseling, I learned a lot of things about myself. And I would say this to anybody: if you have the opportunity to go to a counselor, and I would encourage you to go to a Christian counselor. If you have the opportunity to go to a counselor, do it. It is so healthy and so good to find out why you are the way that you are. And becoming self-aware is so critical. What I learned through my time at counseling is that the impact that my father had on me from ages about 4, 5, 6 years old, all the way up to about 14 or 15 years old, is what shaped the wiring of who I am and how I thought about the world. And we all have that. Our wiring of how we view the world, how we view ourselves, how we view others, what we think is possible or not possible, it's all programmed into us from that time period of ages about 4 to 14. That's when we understand what we know and what we believe about the world. But here's the critical part. You and I had no say in what that influence would actually be. It was up to our parents. Our parents decided what influences would be in our lives. What friends would they invite over to our house? What activities would they sign us up for and be a part of? What part of town would we live in? Who would our friends be as a result? What was their socioeconomic background going to be? What were their biases going to be? All of that was programmed for us at that time in our life. We didn't get a lot of choice in that regard. We went to the school based upon where our parents decided to live. We had a lot of friends based upon who our parents decided to be friends with. A lot of it was based on our parents. And not only that, but how our parents treated us, how they approached us. And through counseling, I realized that a lot of the way that I thought about myself and about the world was not my fault. And that's what I want to say to you this morning, is that the way that you view the world, if you've never done this before, where you've looked back on your childhood and you've never really done a self-introspective work in your life, the way that you view the world is not your fault. It was given to you by someone else. But here's what's critical: is I learned through counseling how my dad parented me. And here's how my dad parented me. He was a very kind of strategic coach. He was an aggressive coach. He was a Bobby Knight kind of a coach, the win at all cost kind of a coach. And it was one of those things where he would do whatever it takes to get an advantage to win. He was very competitive. And it was almost like he needed to win. Well, not only did he need to win, but he also needed validation through me. And here's the reason why. Not only did I look back at how my dad parented me, but I took a deeper look at how he was parented. Because if you're a parent, you know this. You tend to parent your kids the way that your parents parented you. Even if you didn't like it, it's ingrained. It's hard to change. And so naturally, that's what happens. Well, here's what happened with my dad. I want to give you the background on my dad. He was born in 1945. He was born during the war era. His father was in the Marines. His father spent time in the Marines on active duty in deployments. And when his father came back from his last deployment, which was the Korean War, his mind was really messed up. He had a mother who struggled with being alone during that time when his father was deployed, and who just became very mean and very bitter. My father was the oldest of 5, which at that time meant that he became the surrogate dad for the other siblings. And at the age of 13, his mother, my grandma, put his father, my grandfather, into a mental institution with the military, most likely because he had PTSD, which at the time was not diagnosed. Well, what that did for my father at the age of 13 is it took away his childhood, and he had to start working. He threw newspapers in the morning. He sat groceries after school, and he no longer got to do the things that kids got to do, which is participate in school activities, go on dates, go to dances, sing in choirs, all of those things that are typical for growing up. He lost them, and he had to become a grown up much, much earlier in life. Not only that, his dad was taken away from him, and his mom, because she was just bitter, became very verbally abusive and just mean. And so he grew up with a distaste for women because of his mother and bitterness towards the fact that his father was not around. Most importantly, his dad never spoke those words of confidence that all dads need to speak into their sons, that moms need to speak into their daughters. And that is, you have what it takes. You're good enough. You can do this. He never experienced that validation that we get from our parents. And so how did that translate into how he parented me? Well, when he knew that I was going to be born, I was his only son. He had 3 daughters and I was the only son. And he decided, consciously or unconsciously, I don't know, that he was going to live vicariously through me, that he was going to get those experiences that he missed as a kid through me. And so what ended up happening is whenever I would do something well, he would take credit for it. If I scored a lot of points in a basketball game, he'd say, well, who taught you how to shoot? I'm glad I worked with you on shooting, or, glad I took you to the gym. It was always him. And I don't think he was doing it maliciously. I think he just needed validation because of his childhood. But what it did to me was it told me that anything good that I did in my life was not because of me. It was because of him. It was external. It was not internal. But the flip side was also true. If I had a bad game, if I had a lot of turnovers in basketball, whatever it might be, he would say, you need to work on your passing, or you need to work on your defense, or you need to work on your ball handling. And when those are the messages that you receive over that 10-year period, that critical period where we develop the wiring of how we view ourselves in the world, it tells me 2 things. Anything I do well is not because of me, and everything that I do bad is totally because of me. And so even though I had a very successful childhood, I struggled immensely with confidence because I truly felt that I was just getting lucky. Why was I on the All-Star team? Well, my dad's the coach, probably. That's why I got on the All-Star team. Why am I the starting, shortstop of this team? Well, because they probably couldn't find anybody else. It was never because I was putting in the time or I was doing the work. I mean, I was a gym rat. I played basketball all the time. I played baseball all the time. Like, that's all I wanted to do growing up was play sports and sing. And I just love those things. So I was the one putting in the time, but I never believed that was the source of my success. And so it killed my confidence and my self-esteem. So much so that I couldn't ask a girl out in high school, couldn't ask girls out in college. Had no confidence to do that whatsoever. And so again, here I am sitting in Portland, Oregon, crying, not sure why. And now I understand why. It wasn't my fault. And it wasn't your fault either, the way that you view the world. But now that I knew what was going on, now that I had fully embraced my past, and not only my past, but my dad's past, now it was on me as to what I was going to do with that. Let me tell you a couple of things that I got out of that experience of understanding how my dad was parented and his need for validation and his need for approval. First of all, it allowed me to empathize with my father in a way that I never had before. Now, my father passed away in 2005. He's been gone for 17 years, which is hard to believe. And we really struggled there towards the end of his life. And I wish he was here today that I could tell him, I understand, Dad, and I forgive you. But he's not. But it still gives me the chance to understand who he was and to empathize with him and what he went through in life, the challenges that he went through in life, which was freeing for me. It was liberating. It allowed me to forgive and let go and understand that he did the best he could with what he had. He just didn't have much to work with. The second thing that it allowed me to do was to start giving credit to myself for the things that I've done well. And for some of you out there, this is the first step that you need to do. You need to start giving yourself credit for the things that you've done well. When I think about my career in basketball or in golf or whatever, I have to remind myself that it was because I was in the gym shooting the shots. It's because I was on the range hitting the shots in golf. It's because I was playing every day in the summer. It's because I was singing or I was practicing my guitar or whatever it is that I was doing. I did it. And I needed to give myself credit. And that's important for all of us to do. We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit. But what that does, when you start to give yourself credit for the things that you are doing, it begins to build up what I call justifiable confidence. Not arrogance, not cockiness, but justifiable confidence. What is justifiable confidence? It's when you do something over and over, when you do it enough and you do it right, that you know you can do it under any circumstances. It's about proving to yourself that you can do it and giving yourself that self-confidence, that self-talk of what I call justifiable confidence, where you can go and do something well. Confidence comes from doing the right things over and over. Cockiness and arrogance comes from an insecurity, a place of insecurity and a need for approval. When you embrace your past and understand who you are, and especially if you struggle with self-confidence, once you start to give yourself credit and put in the work and put in the time and give yourself credit for doing so, you can begin to build justifiable confidence. And that leads to the next part, which is the ongoing side of it. And that is, I started practicing self-talk. And you know what's interesting is self-talk is the most important communication that you're going to ever hear. You know, Brenda at the introduction talked about communication today. And communication is so critical, especially in families, in businesses, on teams. But the most important communication that you're ever going to have is the communication that you have with yourself. The self-talk. What do you tell yourself? And the journey to becoming self-aware is so critical to creating the future that you want to see. It's so critical to building the future that you envision in your mind. I bet every one of you has a dream, has a vision of what you want to do in life, but there's something holding you back. And a lot of times it's your past. A lot of times it's what you experienced as a kid unwillingly and involuntarily that is affecting your future. And so as you start to build that future and you start to work in self-talk and how you communicate with yourself, it's so critical. Let me tell you some of the things that I do now that are really helpful, because there are days that I wake up and I am overwhelmed. I wake up and think, I can't handle this. And I wonder if any of you feel the same way. If any of you feel that, oh my gosh, this is too big for me. I can't handle this. And what I've learned to do, it's really simple and it's kind of silly, but it works. Whenever I feel that way, whenever I get up and I just feel, man, I don't know if I can handle today, I go in front of my bathroom mirror. I look myself in the eyes and I say, no, you got this. You can do this. You got it. Keep going. And then I walk away. And at that point, I just start doing. I just start working, because let me tell you something. It's a lot easier to act your way into a feeling than it is to feel your way into an action. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling like, man, I don't know if I can do this, it's real easy to sit it out. It's real easy to just take that day off. But what has helped me is to actually tell myself, coach myself, encourage myself, hey, you can do this. No, you can do this. And then I start moving, because I truly believe that God has given us the resources, the talents, the gifts to accomplish the visions and the dreams that he has given us. God never gives us a dream or a vision that he's not going to equip us to achieve. We may not have all the tools today, but as we keep walking, we're going to pick up those tools along the way. But that's so important, that you don't self-sabotage yourself, that you start to put positive self-talk into your life. It is the most important communication that you will ever have. And this journey to becoming self-aware, again, it's just so critical to building this future that you want to see. And again, once you know the wiring, once you know the source of what's going on in your mind and how you see the world and how you see yourself, it's up to you. It's time to rewire your brain. And that is so critical. Let me share with you one thing that I think is incredibly important when it comes to rewiring your brain. And it comes from the Bible, from the book of Philippians, chapter 4. One of my favorite passages, especially when I think about being self-aware and helping myself think about the right things. Here's what it says. In Philippians 4, starting in verse 6, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And this is the really important part. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I can't tell you how critical and important that is, to understanding the source, the true source of where self-talk should come from. It's not that we want to tell ourselves things that are not true about ourselves or not true about the world. We want to be honest with ourselves. But I love this passage which simply says, listen, you're going to be anxious in life. You're going to stress about things in life. And I bet a lot of that's going to be from a lack of self-confidence or abilities, belief in your abilities. And this passage just says, listen, take that to God through prayer, through supplication, with thanksgiving, and just share this with God. But then most importantly is switch what you think about. All right. If you're thinking about things that are false, think about things that are true. If you're thinking about things that are not honorable, think about things that are honorable. If you're thinking about unjust things, think about things that are just. Think about things that are true and remind yourself of those things. And a lot of it for me comes from daily time reading my Bible. That's where it begins for me, because God is truly the source of my life, of my future, and where I'm headed. And so I want to be in tune with him as much as possible. And self-talk is a critical part of that through my time reading my Bible. And let me just tell you something else as well about that. It's important that you start to speak things into existence. Now, some people might go, that's weird. That's weird. But let me tell you something really fascinating. I had somebody share this with me one time, and this made a lot of sense to me. When you figure out where you want to go in life, the vehicle to get you there often shows up at that time. And I've remembered that a lot. And I want to share with you just a couple of things from my life, a couple of stories that talk about this. When I was a middle school math and science teacher, man, I felt bad for the kids. I mean, it was a rough time in life. How many of you had a good middle school experience? I'm pretty sure nobody's going to raise their hand. It's a terrible time in life. I mean, you have girls, their bodies are changing. They're often growing faster than the boys are. So a lot of times they're taller than the boys. You have the boys that have way too much energy and their voices are cracking. And someone decided along the way that it would be a really good idea to put 25 or 30 of these adolescent co-ed preteens in a classroom with one adult for 6 hours a day. That just doesn't even make sense. When I was a teacher, I remember going, oh my gosh, my kids are never going to middle school. In fact, I would come home. We didn't have kids yet, but I would come home and tell my wife, when we have kids, they're never going to middle school. This is really, really, really difficult, really challenging. And we came up with this vision for our family. And the vision was this: when our kids got to middle school, we were going to buy an RV and we were going to take them across the country and show them history where it happened and have family time and spend time together. Now, again, I was a teacher and a pastor. My wife wasn't working. We didn't have much money at all. And this idea seemed crazy. This was back in 2008, 2009. Well, I'm happy to share with you that in 2020, we bought an RV and we took our kids around the country, showed them history, where it happened. We went to Seattle, Washington, all the way down to Bakersfield, California, in the Las Vegas area, then Grand Canyon area. We went to Key West, Florida. We went all the way up to Portland, Maine. All in all, we took our kids to 42 states and we showed them history where it happened. And I can't tell you how important it was to start speaking that into existence. And there's nothing mythical or magical about that. What we did was we started self-talking what was going to happen in our life. It led us to go to RV shows and look at RVs. It led us to think about, how we could save money, what that would look like, what kind of job would I need that I could actually do this and keep working, or maybe I could make enough money to stop working for a while. We started thinking about how to make it happen because we had a vision, and we started talking about that vision. We started speaking it into existence, and it came true. And it was one of the best experiences that we had with our kids in taking them around the country. It was some of the best family time that we ever had. It was some of the best memories and the pictures that we look at now because we started speaking that into existence. And that in many ways for our family was a form of self-talk. And it's incredibly powerful when you put your mind towards that. And so my encouragement to you today is to take time to embrace your past, to really think back through your childhood, how you were raised, how your parents, talked to you, the influences that were in your life at that time, and how that impacted you. And really start to dig in a little bit further back. I would encourage you to not only look at your childhood, but if you're fortunate enough to have your parents in your life, start asking them questions about their childhood. What was good about it? What did they like about it? What did they not like about it? What was it like at school? What was it like when they got home from school? What were their vacations like? all of these different questions to find out, how were they raised? What was their childhood like? Because that will oftentimes give you clues and a window into understanding why they parented you the way that they did. Now, some of you, man, you may have had a great childhood and you didn't have some of the issues that I had, but I bet you've got something. All of us have issues. As I said at the beginning, we're all broken. There's something wrong with every one of us because we're human. And that's the way that it is. We're all born with a sin nature. There is a problem with this world. You can look around and see that it's there. And so don't be naive enough to think that there's nothing wrong with you or nothing that you can work on or nothing that you can improve. But the important part is to go back and to embrace your past so that you can create your future. I'm really excited about meeting some of you in the future and hearing your stories, hearing about what you've been through in your life and what that has meant to you, and these victories that you're going to experience along the way, these moments where you're going to be able to turn a corner on that. I want to end today by talking to you about what I'm doing today and where I'm at today. I still struggle with confidence. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I don't think my struggle with self-confidence is something that God's going to take away from my life, because it requires me to be dependent upon him for the source of my confidence in life, understanding whose I am, not just who I am. So it hasn't gone away. And I don't want to sit here and tell you that everything's going to go away if you do this. What I can tell you is that it has helped tremendously in understanding who I am and taking the proper steps so that I can be confident, justifiably confident in what God has for me. And I truly believe that God has a vision for my life that he is continuing to reveal, and that it is my job just to keep walking in that one day at a time. I don't know where it's all going to lead. I don't know where my business is going to lead. I don't know what it's in store for my family. I don't know how much sand is left in the clock that God has for me. It could be a day, could be another 40 years. I have no idea. But my job is to simply take one step at a time and continue moving forward. And that's my encouragement for you. Life can be overwhelming. It can seem like it's too much, like you can't handle it. But I promise you this, God will give you the strength and the tools and the ability to accomplish the vision and the dream that he has for your life. And I can't wait to hear more about that when we get to meet sometime. I hope that we'll see you at one of the events in the future. And I appreciate you guys listening to me today. I think I had another 10 minutes or so, but I think I'm going to call it right here. I think we're good.
That was amazing. Lots of good info there. We had some of the comments. Somebody said that what an awesome and profound message. And I don't think people realize that self-image can make or break you. It prohibits you from moving forward to do the things that you really want to do because you don't think you're good enough. And that's exactly why we do Becoming the Best You, is to help people through that. And it's a lifelong struggle for some people. I struggled with it for many, many years through high school, in through early years of my marriage. And it's tough. It's a battle.
Yeah. And can I share one more thing real quick?
Sure.
So one of the books that has made the biggest impact in my life outside of the Bible is this book called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. Something that we learn in childhood as well is that failure is bad. We learn that, in school that we can't fail. We have to avoid failure at all costs. And that ends up crippling us as we become adults because we're afraid to try for fear of failure. And when you realize that the most successful people around us, whether it be with families or businesses or whatever, they're also the ones who have failed the most because they're not afraid of trying. And it's been a huge impact for me, just to remember that, failure is it's not a permanent state. It's not the end of the world. It's actually the building blocks to success. That's been really valuable for me.
And it makes sense because, when you fail, you learn, and you learn what not to do again. You learn what works. And then you learn also the experience, and see that experience is what gets you to the next level.
It's so critical. And some people say wins and losses, like, hey, let's talk about our wins and our losses. I don't say that. I say, let's talk about our wins and our lessons. And that's just a small change, just one word change, but it changes the entire perspective of your life and what you're going through.
That is so true. It is so true. And, when we put ourselves aside and we bring God into the picture, you've just opened the doors to let him have all of your wins. And what a better way to win than to let God do it for you, because that's what he will do. But you have to let him.
I firmly believe that God is always going to write a better script for our life than we will for ourselves.
That's
a lot of times we have trouble getting, letting go of the pen. We have trouble with that.
You know, I heard a speaker say once that we always go to other people for the things that we want, but why not go to God because he owns it all?
That's right.
No, I mean, that's who owns it all. So why wouldn't you go there first? And
Yeah,
then
it
to
changes
learn
it changes the game when you're struggling financially and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. Well,
Yep.
God promises us that He's going to clothe us better than the lilies of the field and feed us
Mhm.
better than the birds of the air that don't toil for their food. Like we just don't believe that sometimes to the point of action. It doesn't mean that we sit back. There's still work to be done, but when God is a part of that, we don't have to worry about that.
Isn't that
Yeah,
the truth? Yes.
part of becoming the best version of you is recognizing that you can still believe in the things that you can't physically see, but you can see it in your spirit. You can see it in your everyday walk. You can see it if you just take those moments to see all the things that are already going on around you. Many times we can't see the picture because we're part of the frame. We're in our own story. We're in our own picture, and we can't see the full manifestation of the canvas because we're stuck in that tunnel vision of where we are right now. But Winston Churchill once said that success is just failure over and over again without loss of that enthusiasm. So if
I
you
love that.
know that this is your God given talent, this is your God given gift, this is your destiny, then recognize that on the way towards the destiny, the journey is going to have failure within it. It's going to have those obstacles that you can't get over right there at the beginning. So that once you do get over them, you'll remember them, you'll give yourself credit for them, and then you'll continue to learn how you got over that last obstacle and use that to get over the next obstacle. So I thank you for really sharing that with us. And if I had one takeaway from what you said with us today is give yourself credit for the things that you have done. And then I want to add on to it, give yourself grace for the things you have not yet achieved, because that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. A dream deferred is not a dream denied. There's just some more lessons you have to learn before you can give yourself credit for successfully completing the assignment. So thank you, Trey. How can they get in contact with you, Trey, if they want to have a deeper conversation with you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook or social media. My handle is 24 Trey Griggs 24. They can send me a quick message on any of those platforms, and I check them all and respond personally. So would love to hear from anybody, and if I can help in any way, be glad to do that. They can also find our business at betaconsultinggroup.com, and if they have a question, there's a contact on there and a phone number as well.
And you can meet him in person in St. Louis.
That's right.
Absolutely. Come on, see him in February with our great BTBY family at the next BTBY event in February. Just go on over to comechangeyourlife.com right now, and you can learn how to embrace your past so that you can create your future. This is Trey Griggs, you guys, the BTBY Masterclass. Thank you so much, sir.
Right.
All right, so let's give it up again for Trey with that great masterclass session. Trey, just go ahead and put information in the comments. We'll also put it up on the screen so that they can see how to get in contact with you as well. So what did you think about that session, Brenda?
I love his story because it's so humble and it's so true, and it resonates with so many people because we all struggle in that area to some extent, but nobody wants to admit it. So if you can't admit it, then you're not going to change it. That's key. You have to be aware of the problems that you have in your own life in order to make the changes that you need to come through it.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way for what he was saying about give yourself credit. Before you can give yourself credit for anything, you have to be aware of the things that you've done. And many times in our microwave society, we are aware of the things we haven't done, and that's what we tend to focus on. But if we were just to sit back and put pen to paper and just write down the things that we have done, you may not have reached the mountaintop, but maybe you've climbed that first rock to get to the mountaintop. give yourself credit for that, because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. So give yourself credit for taking those
That first
steps
step's
as
often
you
the
go from
hardest.
often the hardest, but it's the one that leads to the good, to the better, to the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
So we want to thank Trey again for that. We are moving at hyper speed now into our next speaker, but we want to make sure that we put Trey's information out there so people will know how to get in contact with him. If you want to email him, you can simply go to his great email address, which we're going to put it on the screen just in a second. If the beautiful, lovely world of the internet will allow me to get it up there. Here, and again, Trey is going to be one of our groups. He's going to be one of our preferred speakers that you can catch if you come see us in February in St. Louis at the Becoming the Best You conference. But if you can't wait till then, just go ahead and check him out on his website, and the website on the screen right now, betaconsultinggroup.com, the betaconsultinggroup.com, and you can click on his contact information and get more information on how you can connect with him now, or how you can connect with him in St. Louis in February. So let's move right on into our next speaker, because we've got another powerful presentation from someone who's going to be a part of our BTBY event next year in February as well, right, Brenda?
He is, and let me tell you, you better get prepared, because he's in your face. He makes things happen. Yeah, I've met with him on several occasions now in the Kansas City area, and I can't wait to hear what he's going to tell you guys today. And I can't wait for you to meet him in person in St. Louis in February.
Well, yes, let's meet him now, learn a little bit about him. His name is John E. Avocado, and he's a critical skills coach based in Kansas City. Now, he served his country as a load master in the Air National Guard. Thank you for your service. And this is the first step in him becoming a communication expert. And you guys, you hear that word communication again. We'll talk about it throughout this day. He has been a lifelong teacher and life coach. And when wanting to become a better draftsman, he offered to teach the old timers how to use computers if they would show him all the practical knowledge out on the machine floor. He bartered his gifts in order for their services. Now he continues to help others communicate to themselves and to improve their lives through coaching, but also through volunteering with the Boy Scouts and the Adventure Center of Kansas City. So let's welcome to the BTBY Masterclass stage, John Avocado. Good morning,
hey,
John.
everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning to you guys.
Good morning to you
fantastic.
too. Great.
You guys have had a
Well,
powerful morning already.
Man, I tell you, there's more to come. More to come.
So thank you for
John,
that introduction.
You are so welcome, and we know you've got a powerful message that you want to share with us right now. So we are going to turn the stage over to you. BTBY Masterclass, this is John Avocado.
Hello, everybody. Like they said, I'm Johnny Avocado, and I just want to give you a little bit more of a background about who I am. I think it's important that you might want to know why and how I came to be what I am and who I am. So it started off, like they said, I grew up in a very happy childhood home. I want to make sure I preface that for everybody. Oftentimes when we come to places like this, we want to hear the experiences of those before us and see how closely they align with us. A lot of times, many folks can make a connection to me because although I've had a lot of drama and trauma in my life, a lot of that was self-imposed. The home that I grew up in was very, very happy home. My father and mother were able to teach me a great number of skills. I can do just about anything that there is in the world. The problem was when I went from childhood to start to become an adult. And a lot of that change happens for many of us right in that time. And the best way to describe how my parents raised me is my mother wanted Jesus and my father wanted John Wayne. So I got a whole lot of confusing communication skills about who I was supposed to be and how I was supposed to be. And through it all, I built the defensive mechanism to just do what I was told. I became biddable until I wasn't. I became outrageous when I wasn't biddable. So there was a great dynamic here that I had to center within myself. As I grew older and started to become an adult, I saw a whole lot of my friends graduate high school, and they were just doing things like being dishwashers and stuff like that with their life. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something. And I knew that I needed some structure. And the Air Force offered that opportunity to me. When I joined the Air Force, they gave me the thing that I needed, which was some direction and a plan. At the time, I didn't know that's what it was that I needed, but that's what they gave to me. And they helped me through the process of becoming a young man. And through all of that, I got to deal with a whole lot of other communicators in the world. One of the great things about our armed services is through the centuries, or through the decades, centuries too, through the decade, they use century-old information, but through the decades, they have learned how to communicate within the organization themselves and how to take a person, break them down a little bit so that you start with a clean slate and build the thing that you want. Now, I had kind of a meta process through all this. I was able to kind of stand outside myself and see this happening. And I watched and witnessed a whole lot of this and retained it. And as I progressed through a whole lot of my technical skills, learning to be a load master and avionics technician as well on F-16s, I was able to see how this process of putting information into my head worked and how they developed the habits that I needed to be successful in those different roles. Now, being a technician sitting on the ground for F-16s was a very different role than being the load master there at the mission as it was going off. That sortie happened. So I was able to see some very different methodologies of teaching someone and how to build and define those habits for the self. Excuse me, just a moment. So after I got out of the Air Force, I went back into civilian life. And I suffered the problem that a whole lot of other guys did. I went out, the Air Force taught me that I was special, that there was something great inside of me, and they were able to find it and help me hone it. And so when I left the Air Force, I left with this great attitude, the thing that my father hadn't given me, some self-confidence. Although he had given me capacity and capability, the Air Force gave me confidence. Then when I went out into the civilian world, I tried to couple those two together, and I failed horribly. I came into what was considered what many folks call the basic world, where there was purpose and passion and meaning and regiment to how we would accomplish a goal, what we were going to do. The mission was defined. I knew what I was going to do in my life. And I wandered for a long time. It took some friends, and it took, in fact, my wife and her 2 children to help make me see that there was more to life and what things I wanted to connect to. And by first connecting outside of myself to other folks, including my friends and family that were helping me through the struggle, and then my soon-to-be wife, I was able to start to develop some processes and find resolution for myself. And I got to a good place finally. It took a long time, and it took a lot of struggle. And I found myself sitting at the end of this journey, and I said, man, if I can do anything to help somebody else get through that journey quicker or easier or make a better connection, then I had to do it. So I started running my mouth a little bit, and I started to get myself educated. And I really started to dive into the psychology of who we are and how we are and why we make the decisions that we do. And I needed to do this for myself. My journey was, like for many, very self-reflective. I wanted and needed to fix the things in me. There were things I wanted to do. I was compelled and impassioned to perform. I didn't know how. So I started to dive into the psychology of how and why we make the decisions that we make. And a lot of that information I found out was tied up in sales and marketing. So I went down that road and I started to chase down a lot of the information that you can find in amazing books like Think and Grow Rich, just to get you started, and a whole host of others. And a lot of that psychology that they began to define in a potential customer or client, we can use that information to be self-reflective to determine and define what motivates us within as an individual. So I took that information and I started to put it together, and I began to develop a coaching practice. People come to me all the time. I'm a very gregarious guy. I love to talk and I love to figure things out. And like I said from the beginning, share that information with others. And it's often a trade. It's always a trade to me. Interacting with people, I always learn something from somebody's story or from their struggle, or as often as not, their success. I have learned to live vicariously and be empathetic to the people that I interact with. So I get so much more of those interactions. And a lot of people come to me and ask me why I'm so happy or how I'm so good at that. And so I teach those methods to you, the very thing that I had to struggle to find for myself. one of those methods that I developed along the way was the very key factor that when we go to want to change ourselves, that we have to get a handle on. One of those procedures is what I call self-labeling. Self-labeling is when you define yourself. For us to make a change, we have to be able to see that there is a potential change to change to. We want to predetermine those choices and those thoughts in our mind when we think about ourselves. Oftentimes, if you're in a low or down place and you go to think about yourself, you think of yourself in that low and down place. That will be your default thought pattern. And what we need to do, what we have learned through the positive psychology route, is that we need to develop a new default thought pattern. Oftentimes, we think about developing habits out in the physical world, a routine or a time schedule to make ourselves do things, a workout routine, or develop a meal schedule so that we eat balanced and healthy meals, things like that. We also want to take those same methodologies that we use to develop physical habits and do the same thing in our mind. We need to develop those mental habits. And one of those mental habits we need to develop is that self-labeling. You need your new default thought of yourself to be the new you, the person you want to be. And so part of that is defining that ownership within yourself. So recognizing that you are in charge of your life and you are going to suffer the consequences of the choices you make, you have to then recognize, or you want to then recognize, how do I begin to make those changes? And that self-labeling is that first step. You got to decide who you're going to be, and then you have to say it to yourself over and over. So part of the process that I did with this is I began to recognize one of the best things that we can do is how we identify ourselves through our common noun, right? The everyday noun that we use. Johnny Avocado is my moniker. That is exactly what people know me as. And that's even how I think of myself. When I say my name, it's Johnny Avocado. Now I want to talk a little bit about that process. Give me just a moment. This dry winter weather has got me going here. So when I talk about the self-labeling, one of the first places we can really get a whole lot of power for ourselves is how we define ourselves. And oftentimes we know we were given a name as a child, and that's the name that we were grown up with. And you would even know, a whole lot of us, right? Your mother would call out your name, or your father would call out your name. And if they used your whole name, you knew you were in trouble, right? So think about that. Every time that somebody would call your name, that puts you in a certain state of mind. When your mother called out your entire name, you went into a role. You were suddenly defined as a child, trying to stand at attention and right yourself in whatever corrective action your mother thinks that you should be taking, right? So we want to use that same process for ourselves when we talk about our own self, when we talk about our personal noun, our name. So the name that we were given as a child, through history, you would oftentimes get another name. There would be a naming ceremony. There would be a transition throughout your life, either when you went to school or as you took on a profession, you would take that name, that last name. Your last name would often be your profession or your occupation. And then sometimes there would be other times that you would change your name as well. If you took on a lordship, or if you became titled, or if you became a master, or if you joined a trade, you started to put a title on there like apprentice. Now, in our modern lifestyle, we've lost a whole lot of this progression. We've lost a lot of this process in our society that help people make that transgression or that transition from one status to the next as we grow. And now many of us are still called by the same name that we were as a child. And there's nothing wrong with that if your thought of yourself has evolved as you have evolved. The problem with many of us when we're trying to make a change is because we're not where we want to be. And to put ourselves where we want to be is we have to start to put ourselves out into the future as the person we want to be. And that self-labeling helps us do that. When you start to say who you are, you become that person. So what I decided to do for myself, and it's a little backstory of this, I've tried to help a number of other vets, and I help with some kids and stuff like that, make their way through some difficult times as well. And through some practice and through some history, I have determined to define that the self-labeling for you to give yourself your own nickname, or even empower yourself with a new way or a new spelling of your name means so much for you. And now many people might think that's weird or coy to try to look at yourself that way, but I assure you it's not. This is definition of self. You have to define who you are, and that self-labeling starts that process. So what I do is I help a lot of folks try to do that for themselves. So a few years ago, my name, Johnny Avocado, a few years ago, I had to put my money where my mouth was. I helped a lot of other people make some good steps for themselves through this process. And I heard a whole lot of folks came to me and asked me a little bit about what this was about and how they could do this for themselves. So I had to go ahead and just put it together, codify it as a bit of a ceremony. So I put a ceremony together, and I decided that I wanted to go ahead and figure this all out while I was at it. And I took some time and I did a little study and I did a little research. And I went ahead and got myself ordained so that I could perform this for somebody who felt that that was important for them. So I got myself ordained, and I got to looking into what it was that I needed to do to define a ceremony that would lead myself into the future, defined by me and not my past, not little Johnny Mester that my mom would call me, or little John as the folks around me would call me as I grew up, but Johnny Avocado, this grown man that's been in the Air Force and done all these things and knows all this stuff. I need to think of myself as that person and not that little kid that my mother calls out to me. So back to my park story, because this is a good story, so we got to get in there. So I gather all my family and friends, the close ones, because I wanted them to be part of what I was and who I am. I want them to take that journey with me. So part of my process was to develop what I called, I wanted to ground myself, right? I want to connect myself to the earth and use myself and reach out to the great beyond and define myself to everyone, the universe as a whole. So I gathered my friends and family in the park, and I laid out a rope, and I had everyone stand barefooted on the rope to connect themselves to me. And I stood in a planter with the rope, and I connected to them through the rope. And we had a bit of a ceremony, and everyone came up and talked to me and recognized me as who I was going to become, who I was to them before, and who I was going to become to them in the future. So that I knew when I said my name to myself that they saw me the same way. This new me, this Johnny Avocado, the man who was taking control of his destiny. So we had this beautiful ceremony in the park, and as we were having our ceremony, lots of folks came past us. We were standing out in a gazebo, and there was a large family gathering, and they kept walking past us, and they were standing there watching us, and they were all enraptured by what crazy thing these folks in the park were doing. And it was my naming ceremony. And so I had a larger gathering than I ever wanted, but it was a pretty intense and unique experience for a whole lot of us. So I put that together and I codified it for other people to use it as a process. And yours doesn't have to be a ceremony in the park. It could be you alone with your loved ones. It could be you by yourself if that's what you need. But the self-definition. So I went through a ceremony to make a little bit more of an experience out of it, because as we all know, making physical real the things that we want help us to manifest those as the future comes to us. So a ceremony is a good process, binding yourself to that thought and to that experience, using physical objects that you can go ahead and use to remember if that's what you need, that tactile or that visual experience. So the naming ceremony was just one of those processes that I developed along the way of helping other people. And I decided that if I had so many folks asking me about what they were doing with themselves and how I was making myself better and how I could help them, that I just had to go ahead and quit making it be a thought or a byproduct or a hobby of mine. I had to really go ahead and put my purpose, my passion, and make this a profession. And so I've been in that translation from who I was before and who I am now. And I do everything I can to help other people find the communication skills that they need to talk to themselves to take the next steps forward. So, excuse me, just a minute. So the thing that I would like for everyone to take away from that is the importance and the power of what self-labeling is. You have to be able to see who you're going to be, so that the default definition of yourself when you think of yourself is this new person. And this is just one of those very small, or not very small, but very powerful techniques that we can use. And I love to discuss with folks. I'm not sure what else, Brent, you wanted me to discuss with folks today. This is my first masterclass. So I appreciate everybody having their patience and consideration with me.
Great job. I love it. The Power of Self-Labeling by Johnny Avocado. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We had some comments in there. Kenya Craft says that she privately renamed herself, and she says her name to herself when she needs to remember who she is. And John and Brenda, many times we can get caught up in this world by the different labels that other people place on us, whether it is husband, whether it is father, whether it is CEO, whether it is janitor, whatever those labels are, positive or negative, that people place upon us, that we forget to who we are or who we want to be known as. So you gave us some great information, but when it comes down to the core, John, how difficult or how easy is it to self-label yourself and really tap into that power?
Well, so it's not as difficult as we think it is. We do it often. You touched on a lot of it. Roles is a good way that we self-label and self-identify. Every time that you think of yourself in a role, you begin to act and behave, and your mannerisms change. You know, when you go from father to mother to lover to whatever, how your attitude, your interactions, and your mindset all change. So roles is a very good way, is one of those methods of self-labeling to instantly put yourself in that place you want to be. It's a great way to become self-disciplined. And to make sure that you're doing the things that you want to do. You talk about that, you know, when I speak in the business world, it's exactly what we talk about. We talk about defining what your role is so that you know when you're standing in that role, you're immediately there and you're using the power of putting yourself in that place. One of the things that we know about change to do for ourselves is that you have to really concentrate on one thing at a time. We like to think that we can multitask and all this, but the truth is we're really not good at that. We are all our best when we're a specialist. And so when we think about that, when we go to make change, we want to be a specialist in that change. And if we can make small, continuous changes, we will be more successful in trying to take this big, complicated change. And so you want to specialize in those changes. You want to put all of your energy and your thought into that change to define it so that you have the best possibility of success. And so defining what those roles are ahead of time is what that role stance is. Now, when you go to self-label, you want to say the same thing about yourself. And so much of self-labeling is awareness and making yourself take the time to evaluate yourself. We all say we wake up in the morning, we go, oh, I'm this or I'm that. Right. And so an example of that might be you may wake up first thing in the morning and have the best day in the world. And then as soon as you go to work and somebody says something negative to you, they're like, oh, you were no good at this yesterday. And immediately your mindset goes from the greatest day in the world to suddenly this person who did this thing in the past who wasn't any good. Right. And you think about who you were instead of this person that you woke up as this morning. So what happens to that is that you fall back into this default. Oftentimes, when most of the situations that we get into, we are reactive and not proactive. And so when we interact with people and we are instigated to react to them, we use our default reactions if we don't take the time to think of a new reaction. And so when we meet confrontation, like especially in the workplace, oftentimes if you're not powerful in the workplace, it's because you're not letting yourself see the new you, you're seeing the old you oftentimes. And when you get chastised or you meet that confrontation, you go to your default methodology. And your default methodology is to put you in this mindset of how you're protective and you're going to defend yourself. And if the past thought of who you are is some little kid coiled up in the corner, or is somebody who stands back and just lets things happen, or somebody who doesn't have the power to make a change, then you're not going to. You have to ahead of time predefine. This is what we call predefinition, predetermining who you're going to be, predecision, so that when you get to that point, you have already decided what choice you're going to make. And when you go to be defensive, instead of being defensive, you might be on the offense, that your new role as CFO in the office is not to stand back and let things happen, but to stand forward when you know it's time for you to speak. So you define that role as CFO to, this is when I need to step up. This is when I need to talk. So you would do the same thing for yourself. The new me is going to do this. I'm this person that acts this way when things happen. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I want to throw out to both you and Brenda, because many times you're a life coach, I'm a coach. Brenda refuses to coach, but she coaches all the time. But in that vein, we tend to look at ourselves based on what we do. And back in early days, we even had our last name placed on us based upon the job that we did. John Carpenter, Jack Farmer, Bill Blacksmith, based upon the things that we did. But I want to ask you, in this whole power of self-labeling, what's more important? Is it more important to be known by what you do, or is it more important to be known for who you are?
That's powerful.
So that might be, so I'd almost break that into two. It's so self-identification versus what you put out into the world. So who you say you are, we often want that to match who we are out in the world, but as we all know, the person, we just talked about roles, how much of who I am out in the world, kind of is defined by the situation that I'm in. So when we talk about this self-labeling, I always have to we're trying to build and define ourselves, is what we're trying to do, so that when I think of myself in my default methodology, that I don't think of the person who failed before, I think of this person that's empowered. That's what we want. We want to envision the person we're going to become. And I mean, that's the only way that you get to do it, because otherwise, we talked, I didn't want to get deep into this, but it's pre-decision. We've already decided what we're going to do beforehand when new circumstances and situations come up. It's how the mind works. It's deep with how we are built. We're always trying to get out ahead of everything. And the way that we do that is we make a bunch of shortcuts. And some of those shortcuts are these default actions that we take when we get into circumstance and situations. And some of the most powerful ones are like confrontation or opportunity. Some people that won't raise their hand when they need to, things like that. So it's because when you get into the situation that calls for action, unless you are really self-aware, you really have yourself in the present, which is part of what you need to do to make change sometimes, you're going to fail. And so, as we all know, when we walk around in our daily lives, we're not always in the immediate present. We're thinking about what happened in the past. We're trying to think about what's going to happen in the future. Our conscious mind isn't always in the moment. And so when suddenly life comes at us, our brain doesn't take the time to suddenly reevaluate everything. We operate on a default action. And so we have to predefine what that default action is, so that when we're in that situation, that's what we're going to do. And so when we start to think about where we're failing, if our failure is in our self-speak, is in the way we think of ourselves, we need to define who we are. And like I said, roles are one of those great resources for us to use, because so many of us have a commonality. It's already predefined out in the world. It's already in our head what that role is supposed to be. So it's easy for us to slip into those roles. Now, everybody sees what those roles are a little bit differently. So you want to kind of, evaluate that. But since we can't always be aware in the moment, that's what we're trying to do when we talk about building habit in the mentality, is we're building a new default action or thought of ourselves. Make sense?
It does.
Makes perfect sense. I love it. And, if you want to get more of these critical skills, knowledge, and this understanding of the power of self-labeling, then you got to join us in February in St. Louis, when John Avocado will take the stage live in person to share some of these golden nuggets that he's been sharing with you right now. You are getting a master class session from John that he charges people, well, more than you paid to be here today. So make sure you are writing down these nuggets and really understanding the power that you have inside of you. The power of self-labeling. You get to tell the world who you are and what you do each and every day. And nobody can take that power away from you. So, John, if they just can't wait till February and they just want to have a closer connection, a deeper conversation with you about everything that you talked about, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, there's a whole bunch of ways. I'm active in a lot of institutions and things like that. The ICKC, if you're an inventor or creative, you can always check out the Inventor Center of Kansas City. Check out the website and see what we're up to there. I have my private coaching that you can go to johnnyavocado.com and see what I've got going on there. You can meet me at my Critical Skills, which is open and free to the public. I usually host it at the Parlor. It is the fourth Wednesday of every month. We meet at 6:30. You can catch us there. It's open to the public. I have a bit of a monologue and a dissertation, a little bit of something for us to learn. And then we have an open networking where we kind of discuss what we've learned and meet a whole bunch of cool people. A lot of great friendships and some business opportunities have come out of that. And if you're interested in hearing a very cohesive set of what I've got to say, I've put together a training session. It's a 4-part session. It's part of my Dream Plan Do. And it's for 4 weeks in December. It's going to be Thursday nights. I'll put details up on the website. If you're interested, I'll take you through the entire process of how you can define your own life and take control of it through the rudimentary process of dreaming what you want, making a plan to do it, and figuring out how to make yourself do it. You can join me in any of those places. And you can also meet me in February at the Becoming the Best You in St. Louis.
Absolutely. All great events. And Kenya says, yeah, you're going to be at the Parlor this Wednesday from 6:30 to 8. And it's a great way to start your Thanksgiving and talk about gratitude. And while we got you here, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect to all of you first off, but I'm grateful for everything every day. And that's a whole lot of what I'd like to talk in depth about on Wednesday. How do we stay grateful and happy with the things we have, but still force ourselves to strive for better and more? That's a conundrum that sometimes many of us fall into. We often think of the positive psychology as trying to help people off the floor. One of the things I've really discovered is that we don't have to wait till you hit the bottom. If we can learn vicariously through others' mistakes and learn positively the things that we need to do, you don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom. And if you feel like you're one of those folks that are in the middle of the road that, oh, I didn't have this great trauma to me and I didn't have all this happen to me, what's wrong with me? Why can't I make myself do this? It's because we get stuck in these ruts. We get stuck into these default processes, and it is taught to us. It's part of our culture. It's part of our relationships and how our society works. And if you want to take control of your life, you have to write that code for yourself. So I'm grateful for the understanding of how we do that and that I can share it with other folks.
Well, that is great. Again, check him out on his website, johnnyavocado.com. And you can also check him out February live and in person. All you got to do is click the link below, go to comechangeyourlife.com and register to have your face in the place with John E. Avocado so that you can understand the power of self-labeling. Thank you so much, John, for being on our masterclass. We appreciate you, okay?
Thanks, guys. I sure appreciate the opportunity. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
Right.
You too.
That was John E. Avocado. He's going to put his information in the chat as well, but you can go to his website, johneavocado.com, or you just go ahead and get that in-person ticket right now and meet us in St. Louis in 2023, where you can see him as far as some other great speakers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs that are going to be sharing their tools, tips, and strategies to help you become the best version of yourself. I think it's already going to be fabulous. What do you think, Brenda?
Oh, yes. And we haven't even scratched the surface. So it's going to be amazing. You know, he was talking about the name and becoming yourself, right? You know, in the Bible, every time that there was a name change, you better listen up because something significant happened for that person to have a name change. And that name change was given by God. So John recreated his name into what he wanted to be portrayed by into his own brand. And that sets a significant example of coming into your own.
Absolutely. And you know what, guys, this is just one of the many speakers that are going to be with us in February at the Becoming the Best You conference in St. Louis. Now, before we go to our next speaker, let's just give you a few clips from some of our previous events so that you can get excited to be with us at the next one here in St. Louis in February 2023.
All I want
Yes, indeed. So those were some of our past speakers, some of our past attendees at our past conferences. But we want to make sure that we add some new pictures and some new faces, and that is you. So come on, have your face in the place where you can get informed, you can get fed spiritually, mentally, and yeah, physically at the Becoming the Best You conference, February of 2023. Get all the details over at comechangeyourlife.com. Comechangeyourlife.com. It's going to be some great information that's going to be shared over the 3 days. Give them just a sneak peek about some of the things that they can expect if they show up in February, Brenda.
Well, it's not even what you can expect. It's a promise, because so many lives were changed in February, and I'm seeing it. And these people have become part of our Becoming the Best You family, and the change is real, because it's not just an event that you come to and leave. It is a 3-day event where you're going to get coaches one-on-one as well, where you can sit and talk and evaluate your life with them and get some feedback. And then when the event is over, we stay in connection with you, and we become partners in this change of becoming the best you, because you need help. If you don't think you need the help, then you really need to go evaluate yourself, because we can always be better. And I have seen lives shift from that first conference to now, and some of them have even come out and become speakers and went in and are grabbing those dreams that they've always wanted. It gave them the confidence, not only just the confidence, it gave them a team to help them do it.
Absolutely. We have seen people personally go from attendee into becoming part of our family through our BTBS, our Becoming the Best Speaker Academy. And now they've graced the stages at BTBY events and other virtual and in-person events around the country. So this is definitely something. This is not just a conference. This is a movement. This is something that we are looking to spread far and wide to let the world know that, sometimes you don't need a hand, you need a helping hand. You don't need a hand out. You just need someone that's going to guide you along the way to help you become the best version of you. So if that's you, if you're looking to start 2023 strong, becoming the best version of yourself, and you need a little bit of a helping hand, then we're here from you. Just register right now at comechangeyourlife.com, because that's the first step in becoming the best version of you.
That is so true, because our next speaker had been following our movement, and we had some friends in common that were also part of the movement. And what a great way to meet some really fabulous people, because you need that in your life. So, you really need fabulous people in your life, not people that are going to judge you because of what you drive or what kind of house you live in or where you work, but people who just want to be with you for who you are. So it is important that you do portray and live the life of who you are. That way you don't have to worry about who you said what to. Did you hear me on that? If you just live the life,
say that again.
That's right. And this next gal, she does that, and she'll call you out on stuff too, and that's, I want people in my life that are not going to be afraid to tell me things. That is a real relationship. And you're not going to get better if everybody around you is just saying, oh yeah. I'm a yes person. That's not, we need people who are going to help, that are going to truly evaluate and then help us get to that next level. We have a stepologist, Regina Platt. She helps you take that first step. She's also going to be there. But there's so much more that we need in life. Sometimes you just need that casual conversation.
Yes. And you hit it on the head. You don't want the people that are just going to say yes to everything that you do, because those yes people are the people that keep you stuck here. But the next person that we have is going to tell you the truth so that you can go from here to there. And her name is Sherry Berger. She's the founder of here to there consulting. It's a process and procedure, and she is a process and procedure architect. So, it's important in architecture to make sure that you go from the thought to the implementation and that those two connect directly. She will expertly help your company manifest your vision by creating uniquely designed tools that will transform your business. She finds that transforming your business will often transform your life. Haven't we seen that happen in our lives? With over 20 years of experience leading, consulting, training, and mentoring companies from small businesses to large corporations, she's been a business owner for herself for over 20 years, and she knows how to balance all those functions. But her clients, they call her the process whisperer. I love that because she knows what it takes to create bottom line success. And she's passionate about discovering the individual challenges that clients face and creating productive and profitable tools for your business. So hopefully you've got your pen and your pad ready because the hand is the digital recorder of the mind. And she's about to give you some tools, tips, and strategies to help your mind work at its peak performance. So let's welcome to the BTBY Masterclass, Sherry Berger. Welcome, Sherry.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for having me today.
You
I
bet.
am coming down with a little bit of a cold, so I will just be drinking lots of water.
That's okay. Sherry's also got a book out about what she does, a little bit
I
about her
did. I
story.
recently just wrote a book on balancing, a system for balancing work and life. Can we really balance it all? No. Can we do it all? No. But there's great processes and procedures. And today, actually, I'm going to speak on chapter 4 in my book. That's what I will be talking about this morning. I
What's the title of that
love
chapter?
all the speakers that we've had up to now. I don't know if you guys have been listening, taking notes, but oh my goodness. And I loved how John was just speaking all about how much we need to worry about those labels in our life. And I found that very interesting, being what I'm going to be speaking about next comes right in process with that. So, yeah, John was telling you a little bit more about himself, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. I grew up in a middle class home. I grew up in a middle class white neighborhood home, like a normal person. I'm one of 6. I'm the oldest daughter of 6. And it was a interesting childhood, need to say. Well, I haven't lived at home since I was 17 because my father kicked me out most times when I was 16, not because I was a bad child, but because he had anger problems and he had his own stuff, right? Sometimes we live in that past of what our family life was like versus understanding. And John was talking about this which I find very interesting, understanding where your parents came from, where your generations have came from, right? So I went from the egg to the frying pan. So at 17 years old, I went to an abusive alcoholic husband, and I became a parent at 19 years old. And then that put me into becoming even a single parent by the time I was 20. So that was a very fast way to grow up, right? That's a fast way. And I never, as a child, was ever really a child because at 8 years old, I learned to protect my brother from a lot of abuse. But, we don't choose our childhood, but we get to choose where we are. So I want to start a little bit more with my story. So I understand what it's like to be a mom, right? And trying to be the best version of yourself with being a mom at such a young age. And it can be challenging, overwhelming at times, but that does not excuse us from not striving to be the best version that we can be of ourselves. So we need to live by example continuously, work to be a better mom or a better person, right? Growing along the way and realizing that no 2 moms or 2 women, because women tend to compare women to each other, are the same is very key to figuring out who you are. And so I have a passion for families, and I hate seeing them fall apart. And I have a passion for people, and I hate seeing them fall apart. So have you ever heard the saying, if mom's not happy, no one's happy, my daughter Robin would say that that is 110% true. And so I came from that home where examples of character and integrity were not always a priority to teach. And I had to overcome a lot from my past. And I hope to pay it forward and help others through my service to overcome similar challenges. So I understand what it's like to be a single parent, financially insecure, and even a broken person at times. But I also know that you can overcome obstacles like this. When you do, you will find that grass is greener right beneath your feet. Yes, water your own grass. You just need to put in the work. And I understand what it's like to be lost. Did I tell you? I became a mom at 19. Do you know who you are at 19? Now you're raising a kid and trying to figure out life too. That's a lot. But we all have a called purpose. So every story is different. And I teach about 6 different areas in your life. So each story is unique and created by our own choice. Did you hear me? Write that down. It's your choice. In the end, what we do with our past is the key that unlocks our future. I'm not where I am today by mistake, but by design. I'm here because of determination, dedication, and unbreakable will to not give up. I'm here to share my experiences about overcoming those obstacles in the 6 areas of your life. And if you're ready to overcome them and those challenges in your way and prepared to do the work in your life, you can also build in those 6 areas. And I understand that when I talk about these 6 areas, you could be strong in one area, but you need to be willing to work in the other. And I just told you I did. I wrote this book, and it's on Here to There, a system for balancing life and business. And right now I'm going to go over chapters 3, just bird's eye view, because those are we have to have an attitude though, and realize that we can do and nothing will ever stop you. You need to realize that, right? So as I was working with small to mid-sized businesses, and I've done a lot of business coaching, and I also do life coaching, and I've worked as a consultant, and I've owned my own business for the last 20 years, and I've owned this one for 11 years. I realized that if I was sitting down with a business owner and their life was out of whack and they were having problems in their relationship, did you know it would affect their business? I would sit down and go, hey, let's put our business plan together. Let's put our marketing strategies. Let's figure out, but they were having relationship problems with their teenager or going through a divorce, or not everybody has a family, right? But everybody have people in their life. So if they're having problems in the relationship, it was affecting their business. Then I would sit down with people and they would have health problems. Oh, I understand that. I've had some of those too. But they would have health problems and it would interfere with their business. Can you believe it? Then there was people that were not doing personal development. If they were not growing, it was affecting their business. And when I mean personal development, I mean in your life and your business. If you're trying to be, I didn't really have an example how to be married. And now I'm married to the love of my life. We've been married, 28 years. And we've been dating, I always tease, 32 years, right? But I wouldn't know how to have a marriage if I don't do some personal development on it. I didn't know how to parent without having parenting books, right? You don't know how to run a business without constantly learning with some of your personal development. It could be podcasts. It could be something like this MasterMind. There can be so many ways, but if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So we have relationships, we have our health, we have personal development, then we have our business. We need 3 areas and 3 habits in each of these to grow, right? Each of these areas to grow. And then we have our finances. And people go, wait, finances and businesses are together. No, they're really not. Finances and businesses, right? You have your personal finances and your business finances. And every time I do a talk on budget, people hate the word budget. So we won't use the word budget, but you have a pre-spending plan for your life and your business, right? Both of those need to be in balance. But now I'm going to talk about the most important one. Now, I happen to be a Christian. I don't ever shove that on other people, but spirituality, everybody has. So in the center of it all is your spirituality. And do you know if you're having problems with your spirituality, it affects your business, your relationship, your health, your personal development. See how all 6 wheels? So that's what I talk about a lot in this book. And today I want to talk about something that's really, really important. You can put all those goals together, and that's great. So come up with 3 goals and 3 habits for all 6 areas of those life in your life. Remember what they are? Your health. And these, I'm not doing them in any certain order. So no, not one. Spirituality is the core, the most important one. Okay. But then we have our health, our personal development, our business, our finances, our relationships. And then, like I said, spirituality is the core. So do 3 goals and 3 habits for each of those areas. And you know what? Sometimes relationships take more time. Like I said, when I've sat down with people and they're having teenage problems, or they're going through a divorce, or they're just having marital problems, or maybe they're having problems with their parents. You know, right now, I'm the sandwich generation. I have young adults, I call it, they're trying to, ride the bike of life. They're trying to take their training wheels off. 17 to 25, I always say, is those self-discovery years. They're trying to figure stuff out. And then I have aging parents, and that can be difficult. So I'm known as sandwich. So that could take a lot with relationship. So when I would sit down and if I looked at my relationship, how am I being a good mom to my young adults right now? What are some of the habits, right? And are we going to meet? Like only 2 of them now live in town, but are we going to meet at a certain time to have dinner or coffee? What are those habits? So if you go in each of those 6 areas and you set up your 3 goals and your 3 habits. For instance, with my marriage, I find out that I love people. I'm always there for people. And I do not answer my phone on most nights from 9 to 10, because that's when I'm hanging out, or it might be 9:30, 10:30. I spend an hour every night with my spouse. How important is that? That's the most important person to you, but sometimes you'll forget to do that. So I intentionally see my spouse, and now we're going to hit peak season. He's a UPS driver. I'm not going to see him an hour every day. That's unrealistic, but let's look at your different seasons that you're in and what you want in those areas. And today I'm going to talk about relationships. Do you know you're surrounding with people that reflect what you want to be and how you want to feel, and the energy can be contagious. Can you believe that it's November already? Fall is here. And if you're like me, I'm so excited. I get together with my family, my friends, have fire pits, family time. We just did a celebration, a pre-celebration for the holidays. As we're going into the holidays, sometimes we think Thanksgiving has to be on Thanksgiving. Does it? Christmas has to be on Christmas. Does it? If you have 2 pastors in your family, my son's a pastor and he's married to a pastor and a UPS driver, that is not how life's going to work. So we need to look at realistically when we're looking at our relationships, how do we get to spend time? So we've been the last couple of years spending the week before Thanksgiving, when my husband can take vacation, we do a pre-holiday celebration. And with 4 kids, you don't get them all together, and 3 of them are married. That just doesn't happen, right? So we get who we can, and then we're going to have another celebration the day after Christmas with some other kids. So you have to be a little bit adjustable, right, with those relationships that are important to you. But now I have a school teacher. I do. My daughter will graduate in May, and she will have her teaching degree. And this year she's student teaching, and she's number 4. And she sometimes thinks that we forget her. Yeah, right. She's the baby of the family, right? But she's like, the week before Thanksgiving does not work with me. Couldn't we just do the week of Thanksgiving? So now we're going to have to readjust when we're going to meet, because now we're going to have a school teacher, 2 pastors, and a UPS driver. Can it not get more complicated than that? Trying to get people together for the holidays. So that's where we have to be adaptable, right? And we have to realize that that's important. So this year, I love this time of year because I'm a business and a life coach to reevaluate my goals and figure out what I want to accomplish this year. Like I talked about, those 6 different areas. I love it. This is my favorite time of the year. And everybody always thinks it's because it's, well, I mean, I'm a Christian. I love Christmas. Easter's even more important to me. But I love Christmas, but that's not why this is my favorite time of the year, even though that is because I love my family and my friends. But what I love this time of year is people are willing to reevaluate their goals and start getting ready for 2023. I know I scared you. We're only 7 weeks, 6 weeks out to the end of the year. Or yeah, it's scary. I get that. In 2 of those weeks, we probably won't even be working, Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? But that's always my favorite time of the year. So when I look at this, though, and I start looking at all those areas, I start realizing this is a great time for me and for other people to ask a question. The great question is, who are those people that you're hanging out with? The great question is, do these people bring me closer to who I want to become, or are they taking us further away? Because you know what? When I look at this, I realize how many great people I have in my life. I have great people in my life to support me. But as I was thinking of this, though, I realized, like I said, all these amazing people I had in my life that support me with my goals in my life and my business. Who are those people in your life? Do you have them? I would love for you to comment in the chat if you have them, because that's great. And some of them are actually doing on this mastermind today, right? Awesome people. So there's 4 kind of people, though, I realize that people need in their life. They need coaches. And if you don't have a coach, I have a coach. I have a coach and a mentor for all of those 6 areas. Did you know that? I do. We need coaches, we need mentors, we need cheerleaders, and we need friends. Those are the 4 people that we need. Write that down. Whether it's in your personal life or your business, it's crucial to know who is on your team. Did I say the word team? Yes, team. And what position they play. Building a team is vital for accountability and success throughout the year. Somebody was saying, I think it was Brenda, they were saying I would call you out. But yes, those people that will hold you for accountable, they're going to let you know in love, right? In love, keep you accountable and support you. So now is the time. This is the perfect time of the year to start building a team. Find some coaches, mentors, cheerleaders, and friends. Write those 4 down. Coaches. Why do we need coaches? A clear goal on your business or your life. They will help you come up with a clear goal. Clear on what action it takes and what's holding you back from moving forward in that area. They will believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Develop more courage and confidence. I think John was even talking about that before I was speaking. He was talking about, you're not always confident, but if you have those people that believe in you and help you keep your confidence and courage, that's so important. And you can learn new tools and better habits. Who doesn't need more tools and better habits for their life and their business? Such as time management. I know that's another topic people don't like to hear. Do you know that there is not just one system for a spending plan or time management? You're like, what? Yes, we have to worry about what your personality is, what works for you, what system would work best for you. And coaches can help you come up with a system that works for you, not just for everybody. Feel supportive, have accountability, and feel more motivated by knowing you have that person in your life. A mentor is someone who sees more talent and ability within you than you see within yourself and helps you bring it out of you. So being encouraged and empowered in personal development, helping identify and achieve career goals. It will increase your confidence. Even if you are confident, could you be more confident? Could you want somebody in your corner? Have access to senior role models and build a support network. So I have a story. When I was 18 years old, I met this amazing individual named Gerald Harris, and he believed in me. Did I tell you I was married to an abusive alcoholic at the time? I was always told as a child that I wasn't smart. I wasn't pretty. Well, I wasn't the pretty girl. There's 3 of us girls. I wasn't. And Gerald believed in me when nobody else did. And you know that my ex-husband, who was the abusive alcoholic, used that against me, right? People will never believe me when I tell them at 20 years old, I had no friends. He had totally cut me off from the real world. That's what abusive people do. So as an 18-year-old, for somebody to come along and believe in you, and when you're 20 and you decide you want better for your life, and you have somebody that says, you can do it, what would that mean to you, right? There's areas in your life, I know that you're probably not confident, but if you had a mentor that believed in you and said you could, when you have those records, maybe from your childhood, maybe from an abusive relationship, playing in the back of your head that aren't even true. Do we need to test the reality against what's being said? Coaches and mentors are great with helping you with that. Of course, counselors are always important too. And I always tell people proudly, I have worked with counselors my whole adult life. So going to a counselor does not make you weak. It makes you strong. Write that down. It makes you strong because you're using a sounding board of how to move from here to there. You're actually trying to grow as a person. You're actually not saying that you have all the answers. So find coaches, find mentors, and if you need counselors, find a counselor because those are so important in your life. The next thing that we really, really need is cheerleaders. Cheerleaders. I've heard people say before their mom or their dad was their biggest cheerleader. Gerald Harris, that I was just talking about, he was my second dad. He was more of a parent to me than my parents. He believed in me when others did not. I just lost him 2 years ago, but I didn't lose him, right? It made me who I am today. Everything that you go through will make you stronger and make you who you are. And my parents, they have their own baggage. They have their own brokenness, right? Doesn't make them bad people. It makes them who they are, right? And we get to choose to stay there or grow further. So that's where coaches, mentors, cheerleaders, a lot of people have gone further than they thought they could because someone else thought they could. Zig Ziglar. Did you hear me? A lot of people have gone further than they thought they could because someone else believed they could. When I wanted to leave an abusive relationship, I was 20 years old. My mom goes, honey, you're not that pretty. You're not that smart. What are you going to do? And some people go, that's so mean. My mom just turned 80 years old. Do you know my mom was speaking to herself? She was not saying that to me. She was, but that's what she believes, right? But if you get somebody else that will speak the truth and say, do you want to or you don't? One of Gerald's favorite things to always tell me. I would go, yeah, but I'm not, and I'm not, and I'm not. And Gerald would say, do you want to or you don't? Because the first step is to decide you want to. So I put myself, I'm the first college graduate. I went and got my GED. I had to get my driver's license. I didn't have any of that, right? Put myself through college. But this is not about me. This is about the fact that no matter where you are, you can get to the next level to where you want to be. So get those people around you. Support. Cheerleaders are support. They're sympathetic. They can be a calming voice when life goes all wrong. Have you ever had your life go wrong? I know I have. So yeah, they trust you and your dreams. Do you remember when you were 3 or when you were 5 and you had those big dreams? What happened? Life. And then life might have squished them on you, but you still can move from here to there. Can you tell that's one of my favorite puns? But no, you still can create a custom roadmap to get you where you want to be. Believe in yourself, in your goals, and they don't tolerate less than your potential. Those cheerleaders are going to push you further than you want to go. If you're in Kansas City here, oh my gosh, the Chiefs drive us nuts. They always want to pull it out the last second half of the quarter. I'm not even a football player because I grew up in Alaska. We do not have professional teams. But every time, and everybody always makes a big deal about Mahomes. And Mahomes is great, but you know Mahomes can't do it all. He has to have his team. And those cheerleaders, they never give up on him. And if you ever come to a Chiefs game, I'm going to warn you, we have the loudest stadium in the United States. Okay, that's what they claim. But with all those cheerleaders, do you know how much that empowers Mahomes and the whole team to be the best version of themselves? They don't give up. They will be losing. And all of a sudden, second half, they pull it. And I'm always like, you hear all the cheerleaders? You hear all the people that are not giving up on them? I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for a short period of my time. And I called them fair weather friends because we didn't like it when the Braves or whatever, the Falcons lost. They did not stay with their team. Kansas City stays with their team. Oh my gosh, same with the Royals. Kansas City is big into sports. So if you're like me and you're not the biggest about sports, I've learned over time to, go with it, know who won so that you can communicate with others, things like that. But they have the biggest fan club. They have their cheerleaders. Do you have your cheerleaders in your life? Even when you're about ready to maybe lose, they say, oh no, you can pull it off the second half. And Chief players, no matter how cold it is, and when it's raining, Chief fans, they literally stay in the stadium. Sometimes I wonder what's wrong with them. But do you have those people in your life? Do you? Because you need them. Friends, keep people in your life who truly love you, motivate you, encourage you, enhance you, and make you happy. All right. I'm an extrovert on steroids. I know you all just met me, and you're probably shocked when I tell you that. My husband, people always think he's the introvert. He's more of an extrovert. If you talk about what he's interested in, and by the way, he's my best friend too. We were best friends, and then we ended up dating, and I didn't want a husband or a boyfriend when I met this guy. Didn't I tell you I got burned a lot by my ex-husband? And so I had a kid and I was doing it on my own. Not how it happened. And I'm glad I married him, but it took more than a minute. But he had to come to Jesus with me the other day. Oh no, it was probably a couple of years ago. And he told me, Sherry, you love people. And I'm like, yeah, I know. People are so amazing. They're like snowflakes. They're all different. And Kevin always claims that he never knows who will be at Sherry's house having coffee or wine, because I always love to hear your story and see how I can help you and support you. And that's such a great quality. And I invite everybody into my sandbox. And I used to have people, my friends would say, I had a party here once a month. And if it's every 5 or 6 weeks, that's a lie. That's not once a month. So let my friends know that, okay? But no, my husband finally looked at me when I had a few people. Do you know that there's mean people in the world? I didn't even know that till I was about 40. I thought everybody would intentionally maybe hurt somebody, right? You wouldn't mean to be mean, would you? Because that's not my heart. But that doesn't mean that that's not somebody else's, right? So my husband goes, honey, there's acquaintances, close friends, best friends, and friends that become families. And I'm like, what? He said, yes, there's acquaintances, there's associates, there's business friends. And I go, well, yeah, I get that. And he goes, no, Sherry. Not everybody is your friend. 3 key things to remember is it's okay to have business friends. You know, the ones that you like to see at happy hour, even church friends. I got great friends. I love to have coffee. We always have coffee hour and you run into them. But they might just be your associates or your acquaintances. Are they your really, really good key friends? And understanding and knowing that is so important. And it's not, you don't go up to somebody and go, hey, you know what? You're just an associate or business friend. But you, in your mind, need to know, right? Not everybody needs to. I mean, being transparent and being the real version of yourself is so important. And believe me, anybody that knows me will be like, Sherry's the same at church as she is in business, as she is at home. And yes, be that same person. But I'm saying, know who your really, really close friends are and your best friends. So I'm talking about those ones that at 2 or 3 in the morning, you break down the side of the road and you have them on speed dial. So have those friends and your best friends. And then, of course, I have friends that are, and I know you probably do too, they're like, they're family. I've created my own family over the years. Because I told you, my family's not always all that in a bag of chips. It doesn't mean that I don't love my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, and whatever the boundaries with those toxic type people you have to have. You need to figure that out too, because you need to know your worth, and you must find the courage to leave the table if respect is no longer served, right? You need to know when to disassociate. So a good question to ask yourself when you're around people, do you usually feel empowered when you're around them? Do you feel good and do you enjoy being around them? Or do you feel less than after you leave them? How are you feeling when you hang out with these people? It's so important to know that. And maybe you have to do business with them or their family member, or so maybe you still will be around them, but you'll know to limit. So do you feel bad or drained when you hang out with them? And remember, this was really, really hard lesson for me to learn, but I need you to learn it. It's okay to outgrow people. So when Gerald died 2 years ago, a friend of mine bought me this cool bush. I don't know my plants. It's a rose bush though, and it has little spirals like this that grow out. And she sent me a great, which I have right up in front of me. I don't right now, so I'm going to paraphrase it. But she sent me this great write-up about, as you go along in your journey in life, there will be people in your life for a reason, for a season, right? And sometimes because of divorce, death, or we outgrow them, we move away. I grew up in Alaska. So a lot of my friends in Alaska and when I moved from Alaska to Atlanta to Kansas, that's hard to keep up with all those people. And so sometimes they were only there for a season or a reason, right? And a purpose at that stage of your game. And sometimes as we grow, you might need to outgrow some of them. For instance, I went to Al-Anon when I left my abusive alcoholic, or maybe when I was still with him. And he went to Valley Hope, which is for rehab for people that are alcoholics or drug addicts. But they also have rehab for people like me. So I went through a lot of that, which was great. But over time, some of those people wanted to move on with their life. And some of those connections I made, they're still there. They're still marrying the next abusive alcoholic. They have not overcame their past. They are stuck in that season. Doesn't mean they're not going to move forward, but maybe they're not moving at the same speed that you're moving. So maybe you just need to move forward. And don't walk up to somebody and say, hey, we're no longer friends. That's not. Just slowly stop hanging out with them and find people where you're trying to go next. And boundaries are basically about providing structure, and structure is essential in building anything that thrives. So for your life, in your business, part of your structure is to have boundaries. So you can limit your time with people. You can be consistent with your response, So when I raised all my children, if you have not heard of it, Love and Logic was a great way to give kids natural consequences for their actions and not tell them what to do. But one of the things that we learned was, okay, like if you're dealing with a teenager, and people are not teenagers, but when you can speak to me in a nicer tone, I would love to hear what you have to say. Because if you have had, I had 3 at once, I know, oh my goodness. But anyway, if you've had a teenager, they sometimes will be a little dramatic or not speak respectfully. So you would say, when you can speak to me in a nicer manner, I would love to hear what you have to say. So if you can find those things like, I don't know, just find those ways that you can set up clear boundaries and already know what you're going to, I call it go brain dead, and say to those people when maybe they're disrespecting one of your boundaries. So do not give them, though, your time and your emotion. Sometimes we do that. We don't need to over-explain ourselves. Not everybody cares why you have a boundary. Not everybody cares to know what your problem is. I hate to tell you that, but not everybody cares. If you need to, talk to those people that do care. And train yourself to stop and think about how you can best respond. And it's your choice of how you respond. And do you know, sometimes not responding is a way to respond. You do not need to always respond to things. And if you're like me, Mrs. Talk all the time, expert, what is it called? If you're like me and you love to talk and you love to, but you don't need to always explain yourself. Sometimes saying nothing is the best way to deal with the situation. People in your life matter. Alone we can do little, and together we can do so much more. Helen Keller. Building a team is vital for accountability and success. Remember to look for and develop those people that you need in your life. Get out of your comfort zone and be willing to get around people who help you grow. Have you ever heard the saying, don't be the smartest person in the room? Don't. Get around those people. It could be more intimidating. It could be harder for you to be in those situations because you're out of your comfort zone, but do they empower you? Are they helping you reach where you want to be? And remember to look for and develop those relationships we need in your life. And some questions to ask yourself. Who do you need in your life today to be successful? Write that down. Who do you need? Reevaluate who's in your life right now. How do they make you feel? Are they taking you closer or further from you becoming the best version of you and meeting your goals in your business and your life? And be sure to set boundaries where boundaries may be needed to help you to grow, to be successful in your life, in your business. And be sure to have those 4 people in your life, your coaches, your mentors, your cheerleaders, and your friends. Begin building that success team. And don't feel bad if you don't have those people today, or don't feel bad when you go, oh, I have a lot of people that I might need to. This is a process. It's not an overnight thing, but it's important when we want to lose weight. You get a personal trainer, right? When you want to build your business, you could get a business coach. When you want to put your life together, you could get a life coach. When you want to mentor, Gerald used to tell me when I would walk into corporate America, I got my degree in computer science in the 90s. I walked in as a programmer analyst in the 90s as a 20-year-old when women did not do that. Gerald taught me 2 things. Make sure you know where the manuals are. Now we just Google stuff, right? And find a mentor. So anytime you're going in an area of your life that's outside your comfort zone, find the manuals, which you guys can Google anything. I have to tell people we actually used Index at the library to find information. Now we can Google, right? And make sure you get a mentor, coach, find your cheerleaders, your friends. You move so much faster when you have the right people in your life. There's one more person that we have in our life that's really important. Do you know who that person is? It's somebody you can't get away from, no matter how hard you try. It's you. So do you control your thoughts, or are they controlling you? Life is not supposed to be overwhelming. Life isn't meant to be merely survived. It's meant to be lived. You're meant to be the hero of your story. Do you realize how many thoughts get in the way of our plans? Negative thoughts are learned over time, and they stay with us. Why do we have self-doubt? Why do we let fear get in the way of our success? Faith and fear cannot live in the same place. Write that down. Do you know that faith and fear cannot live in the same place? If you think or saying some negative thoughts and focusing on fear, you're killing your faith. Did you hear me? If you're focusing on fear, you're killing your faith. Do you remember negative things you've been told throughout your life or as a child that aren't true? Maybe you keep playing those old records in your head, thinking you are not good enough at work, in a relationship, as a parent or a spouse, or in general. Other people see you as successful, but you see yourself as less. Why is that? 4 important habits that play into the thoughts are 4 important thoughts: what we listen to, read, watch, who we hang with, what we think, and what we choose. Did you hear me? We choose to believe. Yes, I said choose to believe. What we listen to and read and watch, which is part of our personal development, is so important. What we listen to, read, or watch matters. Feeding our faith by becoming careful about what we listen to, what we read, and what we watch. Have you ever heard the saying, garbage in, garbage out? It's true. What we don't take in is just as important. Positive in, positive out. Making sure to read, listen to, and watch positive things. Somebody talked about reading your Bible. How we start our day matters. Getting your intake levels up by focusing on all those good things in your life. So remember, all those people in your life are important, and who we spend time with matters in the end.
Man, that is true. And you know, who we spend our time with is also who we become.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that's what we need to worry about, is people we spend the most time with matter.
So where can they get this book?
Oh, it's on Amazon. So that, yes, they could purchase our book on Amazon.
Tell us the name of the book
Very
again,
important.
Sherry.
Huh?
Tell us the name of the book.
Oh, it's Here to There Revealed. It's a system for balancing life and business.
Okay. So when you coach, what is your primary specialty?
I'm a transitional coach. So I help people when they get stuck and they're trying to move from here to there. And a lot of times it could be in their business or in their life. But a lot of times I've had people sit down and think, oh, I need to figure out this component of their business. And I find out how much it affects their business is affecting their life. So we might need to work on that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, sometimes we need help to get there. We
Yes.
absolutely do. We also tend to sometimes think we're already there and then wonder why life isn't doing things that we planned it to do. And that's when you go, wait a minute, maybe I'm not there. Maybe I need some help to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is why you are such a good fit for the B2BY stage, because our people are stuck. These are people, and it's not about the money. You can be stuck and make a lot of money and have the life that you think you want, but you could still be stuck because you're not happy, or you're stuck in a situation that you don't like. And sometimes we don't want to admit that. We don't want to admit that we're stuck and that we need help. And to ask for that help is not weakness. You are so right.
So
And I
that's
love. Go ahead, Sherry. I'm sorry.
we help people create the life and business that they love. because I hate it when people's businesses own them and they don't own their right. They don't own their business. And I hate it when we're not having that, because a lot of people went into business. What did you go into business for? And then you lose your life over a business and it's not worth it. So I'm a big advocate on making sure that we are running our business and our business is not running our life.
And most people don't know how to separate it.
Yeah, most people are focused on how to make the business better. And then in that process, they forget about why they started the business in the first place. So that's why I love you're such a work-life balance advocate, that we have to, as much as humanly possible, have that balance between the two, because they intersect so often in our daily lives. But if we can make sure that we're focusing on work when we're supposed to be focusing on work, and focusing on family when we're focusing on family, then that's going to help us get more in balance and put the things that are important to us out there in front. And we're glad that you're here to help us with that process. Your whispering nuggets that you gave us today have made this masterclass such a great show to be a part of, as well as to learn from. So thank you for that, Sherry. How can they get in contact with you? We know we can get the book on Amazon, but if they want to get a more intimate conversation with you and learn more about the process, how can they reach out to you?
So it's here to there consulting.com is my website. And then I have Linktree Sherry Berger as well to get to all my social media platforms. So I can put those both in the chat for you.
Well, we definitely appreciate that you do that for us. And you guys, if you want to get in contact with her, go to heretothereconsulting.com, connect with her on Linktree, can get the book on Amazon, and learn the process of how you can have that work-life balance in your life. Thank you so much, Sherry, for being with us. And she's going to be with us in St. Louis in February. So yet another opportunity for you to connect with Sherry and connect with all of our masterclass teachers today, and really learn how you can start the process in 2023 to becoming the best version of yourself. You see it scrolling on the ticker below. You can register right now, and you can see Sherry live and in person in February. Go on over to comechangeyourlife.com. That's comechangeyourlife.com. Thank you, Sherry, for being with us, and please come back and join us again, okay? Thank
you so much for having me.
Bye-bye, Sherry.
Bye-bye. That was Sherry Berger. That was some great nuggets there. I love being able to be behind the scenes, because, I can get all these notes in real time. But, she said some great things. And this one was really, this is something you can never hear too much. Faith and fear cannot live in the same space. When you hear that, Brenda, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means that if you are living in faith, and faith can be either spiritually or faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith in a movement, faith that that chair is going to hold you, then if you let the fear come into that, you've just removed everything that you had the faith in. And you basically are giving into fear that it's not going to happen, because you're putting fear over faith. And if you have that faith first, there's no room for fear.
Absolutely. I love it. And, we want to give a special shout out to her friend Gerald, because Gerald was dropping nuggets all throughout her presentation.
Yes.
He said, make sure you know where the manuals are and find a mentor. That is just, because, sometimes we get so many different manuals, especially before you could Google everything and you could download everything. I think I have a whole shelf just full of manuals that I can never seem to find that shelf when it's time to get to that right manual. And in life, sometimes you don't have the right mentor in your life, the person who has experienced where you're trying to experience, the person who is at a level that you are trying to get to. You don't have that person to help you overcome the obstacles, to tell you some of the battle stories that they went through, that you may go through. But if you listen to what they say, you may avoid those obstacles along your journey. So definitely having a mentor, having all four of the people that she said, having coaches, mentors, cheerleaders, and friends is definitely important as you go through that journey of becoming the best you. And Brenda, I'm glad to know that you're all four in my life.
And you as well in mine. And those four things, when you find those right people, that's a blessing. It's
Yes,
a gift. hmm
yes,
And it's something
absolutely.
that should be treasured. And, relationships go both ways. If you have that relationship with, let's say, the new boyfriend or the new girlfriend or whatever it is that's new, you tend to be on your best behavior and you tend to be the one that's always doing for that person. And then as the relationship gets older and you start to get more comfortable with each other, the trueness starts to come out, right? And when somebody can accept you for that realness, that you don't have to put on that face or that front anymore, that is when you can really start to make the change and to evaluate, because somebody like Sherry is going to come in and tell you as a friend, hey, don't do that. Are you crazy? Why are you doing that? And it's done in love, but at the same time, it's not just saying, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So sometimes in a new relationship, we tend to tell people what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. And I look for people that tell me what I need to hear. And I guess I have this guy called Mr. Unstoppable that tells me that daily.
Well, thank you for that. I'll send you the cash app later. But when I think of what we've been talking about today in the master class, and when I really break it down to what Sherry just shared with us, the four different types of people you need in your life: coaches, mentors, cheerleaders, friends. Brenda, I think about that. Those four people are like the perfect cup of coffee.
hmm hmm
Now, some people they need their coffee just straight black, straight no chaser. And those are the type of people that I call friends, true friends. Those are the people that are going to give you the real deal, no chaser. There's not going to sugarcoat it or add any cream on top of it. And then sometimes you need those cheerleaders. Those cheerleaders are the ones who are going to give you that sugar, give you that high, to let
hmm
you know that you are on the right track or you've done a good thing. As our speaker earlier said, give you that credit for where you are right now in that life. And then sometimes you need that mentor. You need that mentor to let you know that your coffee doesn't always have to be black.
That's right.
Try it this way. Try it with a little bit of cream. Try it with a little bit of sugar and see if the flavor is a little different than how you used to have it. You can always improve on that cup of coffee. And then you have that coach that can show you not only why it's important to improve on that cup of coffee, but give you little tools, tips, and strategies on how to make the perfect cup of coffee for you. And we've got one of those people all wrapped up in one in our next speaker, and he goes by the name Coffee Cup Chuck. Coffee Cup Chuck. His mission in life is to help you to have the perfect blend of coaching, mentoring, motivational speaking, and a little bit of tough love to let you know that you can be the best version of yourself each and every day. But he's not just a motivational speaker. He's got his own business. He's the owner of a commercial electric lighting company. And he also is a podcaster with his morning blog called First Cup KC. And he's the founder of an investment company called Tamic, as well as the host of a podcast called The First Cup. But, that's just the story here. There's a backstory that he's going to share with you as he tells you he wasn't always all those things. He for many days in his life, he walked with the X on his chest. He went from ex-con to ex-quitter. And now he's going from ex-quitter to extraordinary. And he's going to help you. If you listen, if you take notes, if you listen intently, he's going to help you become extraordinary too, and make the first cup of coffee each and every day the best cup of coffee for you. So let's welcome to the stage none other than our friend Coffee Cup Chuck, Mr. Chuck Doyle. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can hear you loud and clear. How are you, sir?
Awesome, man. That was a great introduction there, and I owe
Hey,
everything.
I only call them like I see them.
That's what's up, man. That is definitely what's up. I am pumped to be here today. All of the great people spoke today. Man, those messages just nuggets, 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 nuggets. But I just want to say this presentation, this is dedicated to you and Brenda because, like Sherry said in the last post, the last presentation, mentors and coaches. What are you going to do without them? So I definitely thank you for that introduction.
Well, you're welcome. I've got my cup of coffee and I've got my pen and my pad, and I'm ready to get motivated so that my next cup of coffee is going to be my best cup of coffee. So come on, hit us with your masterclass, BTBY masterclass. This is Chuck Doyle.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So today I want to talk to you all about the X factor and how by applying this to my life, I was able to go from incarcerated to ex-con to elevated. You see, we all have these capabilities to do so many extraordinary things, but we have to do the right things to do it. So what happens is we often allow our mindsets to carry us in the wrong direction. And when this happens, consequences can be pretty expensive. So before I get too far into my presentation, I want you guys to help. I want to help you. I want to help put you all in the right mindset so I can take you on this little journey. So please help me in doing this by fully participating in this next exercise. So first off, I want you all to raise a hand if you've ever believed in something just to find out at a later date and time that it wasn't true. Keep that arm up just for a minute. Now raise your other hand if you've ever been directly affected by the negativity of someone else in any way, fashion, or form. Keep both of your hands up for a second and bear with me because I'm going somewhere with this. Now do me a favor and close your eyes and keep them closed. Now imagine you are a 14-year-old kid surrounded by cops. They're flashlights and guns. They're pointing at you and they're screaming, "Stop! Don't move! Keep your hands up where I can see them." How do you feel? Are you scared? Are you fearful? Or maybe even got a little bit of anxiety? Well, this was me at 14. This was the moment I exchanged the comfortability in my bedroom for a cell. This was also the start of my journey of incarceration. You guys can put your hands down. So open your eyes and let me take you on this journey. In 1989, me along with two of my friends decided that we were all going to strap up like the gangs in the neighborhood. We weren't old enough to really buy guns, so we had to either purchase them off the street or we had to steal them. We didn't have any funds to buy them off the street, so we decided later on that day we were going to break into a pawn shop and steal them. But when we did it, we forgot to take one of the most important elements, bullets. And since we forgot to get these bullets, this is what started the actual crime spree that would eventually lead us to the trouble that we ended up in. We stole a van from a neighbor, robbed a lady at gunpoint, and broke into another pawn shop trying to get these guns before we were actually apprehended by the cops. And that earlier situation that you guys had your hands up, this is when that came into play. So now I'm in prison. And prison is scary when you're 15 years old in prison. You're in prison with people that's twice your age. And There's no hugs. There's no mom. There's no brothers. It's just me and a bunch of grown men. Now, a lot of people would automatically assume that, this would be a compromising position for a kid so young, and he'd be raped and taken advantage of, but that wasn't the case. See, I was 15 years old and I was a young black kid, and this kind of angered a lot of black men on the yard. So instead of going through a period of turmoil and abuse, I actually went from not having a father on the street to actually having a whole bunch of fathers in prison. I was lost. And when I say I was lost, man, just imagine a 15-year-old kid laying in his own cell every night by himself without the comfortability of his own home. It was pretty scary. And I spent a lot of time crying. I cried almost every night for about 2 months. It's probably even longer than that. But eventually, the neighbor who was in the cell next to me, he heard me crying. And one morning he approached me and he said, "Hey, man, take this stack of books and read them." And he explained to me that he hears me over the course of the night crying, waking up in the middle of the night crying. And he told me that reading these books would take my mind out of prison. It was a way for me to escape. So now I took the ability of reading and elevated myself to a totally different place where I wasn't in the prison anymore. I wasn't confined in the walls of this prison. Seeing that I was able to escape prison now every day by reading these books, it allowed me to avoid the man on the yard and all of that fatherly advice. So unfortunately, I never really learned the lesson. I would eventually return to state prison 2 more times before graduating to the federal system. And in this system, this was a different system altogether. You see, this system made it much harder for you to communicate with your support system. It forced them to travel from outside of the states. You were not in the origin of where you were from. Totally different system. This made it real hard for me to even stay connected to the free world, man. I hated it. So I ended up in Sandstone Prison, where I met a cool white kid. This dude was cool. He had a great support system. His support system sent him educational books to read, not the books that I was normally used to reading, the Westerns and the actions and I didn't really get into the romance because I just wasn't in a position to be reading about romance. So, but this guy, his family, instead of sending him books that were just books, they were trying to educate him. They were trying to support him by changing his mindset. So they gave him they sent him in a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This book was actually about changing your mindset by just simply changing the way you thought. After he read these books, he basically would loan them out to everyone else to read. I mean, he read it, so he was just trying to spread the knowledge. This guy was a cool kid. So I was like third on the list to get this book. And I remember when I finally got it, it just made me feel cool. And I just, I don't know. I didn't really obtain the book to actually read it and make any sense of it, even though I tried reading the book. And I just couldn't get into it. It just, I don't know what it was. I just couldn't concentrate enough to actually get past the first half of the book. But this kid finally gave me this book to read, and I started reading it. Now, back to his support system. In federal prison, you get 1 visit a month, but you can have this visit over the course of the weekend. So Friday afternoon to Friday night, you can have a visit. From Saturday morning to Saturday night, you can have a visit. And from Sunday morning to Sunday afternoon, that was the end of your visit. This required a couple days. And seeing that all of our families would have to come from out of town to visit us because of the distance between what the situation with us being in an environment where we were moved away from our origin, they had to travel and board for those days. In the winter, people would board in hotels, but his family found a way to save money by camping during the summer months and the spring and the cooler, the warmer parts of fall. So these guys were on their way to visit him one day, and they were coming down to visit him for the weekend, and he would not get the visit. Unfortunately, a semi-tractor trailer driver fell asleep behind the wheel of a semi. He veered over into their lane, causing them to veer off the road. And when they went off the road, it caused the RV that they were traveling in to roll over, killing everybody in it pretty much. This man lost his whole support system, y'all. And when I say his whole support system, I mean his mom, his dad, his wife, his kid, his sister, her husband, and God knows who else was in the RV. But he lost them, and I mean that devastated him. He lost his whole support system, and all the other inmates and myself could think about is, you know, this could have been me. This could have been my family. This could have been my situation. So, man, I don't know. I had to change. I had to do something. But how do you do that? How do you change when doing what you've done is all you've ever done, is all you've ever known? And, you know, I had this book, Think and Grow Rich, and I said, man, you know, maybe the answer is in this smart book. Maybe I can read this book and find a way to change my way of thinking in the book. I've always been told that if you're ever looking for something, if you're ever looking for the answer to anything, you will probably find it somewhere hidden in a book. So I started reading the book. I read it, and basically the book is about your mindset and how thoughts are powerful and important, and thoughts are things. And just do me a favor, wherever you are, look around your room. Just take a moment, just look around, just take a minute to look around your environment and tell me what you see. Just take it all in. What do you see? Well, I'm going to tell you what you see. Everything you see was a thought first. That's how powerful your thoughts are. Everything you see was a thought. So this guy who lost his family, he would eventually be transferred to a single cell in a holding tank to protect him from killing himself. And I was the last one to obtain his book, so he never got his book back. I actually eventually was transferred out of the prison and transferred to my prison of origin, which was Fort Dix, New Jersey. So when I hit Fort Dix, New Jersey, I was a hustler. I mean, I hustled. I hustled any and every way I could because, of course, I didn't have that support. I didn't have a bunch of money coming in. So I braided hair. I made poems. You know, I even had a service for dummies. I would write their letters, and when the return letter came, I would read it to them. So it was like a package deal. I made food, the little special foods on the yard, and you know, I was braiding this guy's hair. His name was Pops. He was Puerto Rican, or maybe he was Cuban. It was one of them, but I like Pops. I didn't know who Pops was, but I found out real quick that this guy wasn't just an inmate. So I don't know if you guys know the terminology, what it means to be a runner, but in prison, a runner is someone who runs the yard and takes all the chances transporting items back and forth to different people. Well, Pops, he belonged to in-house mastermind group. And this mastermind group composed of some pretty influential and pretty wealthy people in prison. So this runner who used to do all this running for these guys, he came to me one day and he said, "Hey man, these guys that I be buying all this stuff for, they want to meet you. They want you to come to this group. They like what you're doing. They say you're not riding in any gang cars, or you're an individual, you're a hustler, and they like the way you think. So they want to invite you to this group." So I go to the group. When I first enter, I'm instantly intimidated. I mean, I'm pretty big. I work out. I can handle my own. But when you walk into a room of inmates and everyone has laptop computers and cell phones and devices that you shouldn't have in prison, it can be very intimidating. So one of the guys was he was African American. I don't know what country he was from, but he wasn't too fond of me. First question I remember them asking me is, "What's your worth?" I didn't know how to answer this question. How do you answer a question like that when you're looking at all this illegal stuff in prison? So I basically just simply, "Hey man, I got a couple of bucks on my books. I'm running a store. I mean, I'm doing good for myself, I guess, in here." And the African, he basically tells me, "Well, if you ain't worth $1 million or more in this group, you don't speak. I don't want to hear your mouth." This guy didn't really like me, but I can tell that a couple of the other guys were pretty interested in me being there. So I was basically told to listen, and I was basically told that they wanted to see if they can create a project where they could take someone off the yard and put something into them that can put them out on the street and make them successful. Now, don't ask me how they would know all of this, but I figured that by knowing my name, they would know if their plan worked. I remember them telling me when I was leaving that we're going to give you this book to read. Guess what the book was called? Yep, you probably guessed it, Think and Grow Rich. But it was different this time. The difference between this time was they actually told me how to read the book. Earlier, I didn't read the book like I should have been reading the book. And that's why I probably didn't really get a better understanding of how the book should have been processed. I read it like a novel. I read it like it was normal, like it was just a textbook. Not a textbook. I read it like it was just something to escape me out of prison, like normal, like before. This wasn't the case. This book was supposed to change your mind, change your mindset, change the trajectory of your direction. And in order to do that, you had to actually read the book like it was actually a textbook, a learning tool, instead of just something to escape you out of prison. And when I got that concept, changed everything. I actually opened up my mind more, and I actually started allowing those messages that was coming and flowing from this book to actually enter into me and change me. And it changed me. It changed me a lot, and it's still changing me today because I still read the book. But I eventually was released, and because I was reading the book, I had to continue educating myself because I had to keep educating my mindset. I had to keep educating myself. So I got free. And when I got free, I made plans. I got into college, business and science marketing. I went from that to I got into electricity. Well, I was in electricity before I went to jail the last time, but this time I went to school for it. So I'm in school for college for business and science marketing, and I'm in electrical school. So I'm in school for two things because of the book and the way it changed the way I thought. I would eventually marry a beautiful woman, my wife, Corinne Doyle, and she was my friend, my family, my support system. And because I was able to make all of these changes by simply changing my mindset, I was able to be released off of parole early. So let's talk about the electrical world. I got into the electrical world, worked for a small company, and learned the city. But I kept reading a book. And the book told me that I had to continuously change my mindset. I couldn't just stop at what I was reading. I had to start applying it more. I had to apply it more. I had to apply it more. I had to keep moving. I had to keep motion going. So I gained everything I could out of this job. And I knew I didn't want to stay there because I'm in school for business and science marketing. I'm in school for electricity. So I started to think, man, what if I started my own company? Could I do it? Is it possible? Well, hell no. Hell no, it's not possible. How's it possible if I'm a felon? You know, how's it possible if I'm African American with bad credit and all that stuff? So my mindset was not triggering right. But the seeds, you plant seeds in your head and those seeds will grow. So I did plant little seeds in my head saying, one day you're going to start your own company. One day you're going to start your own company. I just didn't believe it. But I did plant them in my head. They were planted. So I started planting those seeds around the city, telling everybody, man, I'm thinking about starting my own business. And people start cheering me on. Like Sherry said in her presentation earlier, the cheerleaders, they're important because they gave me a better understanding of what the world would think of me just by knowing who I was and knowing the personality I had. And they helped me develop this understanding of myself that maybe I could do it. So I started to think maybe I could. Well, one day while I was working, my boss pulled up on me. He pulls up on me, doesn't get out of his car. He basically says, he lets down his window and let me talk to you. Well, me being a funny guy, everyone knows old coffee cup Chuck. I'm this laid back, funny, happy guy, positive person. I approach his vehicle. What's up, boss? Uh-oh, something going on. You know, you didn't pull it up on a job on me. What's going on? He basically looks at me, and he's like, hey man, I got a question. I just heard that you are trying to start your own business like mine. So what do? Do you lie? I didn't want to lie. So I didn't also want to put myself on blast because I still needed my job. And frankly, this was just something that I was just planting seeds, you know. But what we don't understand is sometimes you plant the seeds, the universe automatically puts you on the course. It sets the course for you. Thoughts are powerful, remember. Well, like I said, I didn't want to lie to him. So I told him, hey, look, boss, I'm black. I'm an ex-felon. And I got bad credit with no influence. So I don't know, boss, you tell me. Well, he looks forward at his windshield and then looks back at me and told me, you know what? You're right, man. Man, sorry I even bothered you. And the look in his face was just a look of total relief. He let his window up, drove off. Stood there for a minute. Man, he looked real relieved. Like he didn't have no faith at all. Like, what was I thinking? This guy can't pull this off. He's right. And then I sat there thinking, you said those words, Chuck. You said them. He didn't say it. You said it. You just told yourself that you couldn't do it. You just told your mind that you wouldn't be able to do it because of those things. From that point, I made a pact with myself that I would never doubt myself again like that. I would never do it. So I set the stage. I started elevating, and I elevated to this, to that right there. I created a logo, created a structure, and went out and got partners that could help me do it. Everything that I said I couldn't do, put an X in front of it. That X, I put the X in front of it. And Luminous Technology was born 2018. We were on a roll. Y'all, when I say we were on a roll, we was rolling. I couldn't believe it, man. Got a bucket truck sitting out in front of my house for 2 years. 2 years passed by. COVID hit 2020. When everybody else is losing their companies and everyone else is shutting down and the city is shut down, my mindset saying, let's keep it going. My partners and everyone else is saying, oh man, we should be scared. We should be scared, man. We should go in protective mode. And I said, no. My mind is telling me no. My mind is telling me to keep on elevating. So I kept on elevating and we pushed through. Being able to make it past COVID told my mind that everything the book said was right. Stay on course. Continue to build your mindset. So more books and more books and more books came into play. And I was going to talk about those books today, but my mentor, he told me we got plans for those books at a later date. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that. But my mindset told me it was time for me to elevate to another level now. It told me that Luminous Technologies wasn't all that was in store for me. So guess what I did? I applied teachings from the book, Think and Grow Rich, the same book. I applied those teachings in the real world. In one of the chapters in the book, Napoleon Hill speaks of the MasterMind Association. Very descriptive. I took those teachings and I went out, created a video on YouTube under TAMIC, TAMIC, the American Mastermind Investment Club. It's on YouTube if you want to go check it out. I applied this chapter to the real world. And 3 years later, TAMIC is still here. TAMIC has created opportunities for not just me, but 13 other people. Inside of TAMIC, we have already been able to make an investment to where we have already been able to help someone else become a business owner by creating his own, making his own dream come true. But guess what, y'all? My mindset is, this is not it for you, Chuck. This is not it. So now my thoughts are like everywhere. They're like, this ain't it. My mind is just turning, and I can't get this mind to shut off now, because now I know what I am capable of doing, because I know all I have to do is think it, and not negatively, but positively think the things that I want into existence. So guess what? It's now time for me to elevate again. Six o'clock in the morning, I found myself waking up every morning between 4:30 and 6 o'clock. What the heck am I doing up? I'm up because my mind won't stop moving. It just won't stop. I got to do something about that. Am I wasting valuable time? Am I supposed to be up? Am I supposed to be doing something? What am I supposed to be doing? God, talk to me here, because I'm sitting up in the middle of the morning when everyone else is asleep, staring at the ceiling. Send me something. What's next for me, God? Well, God sends me a personality. He basically said, look, this time will be spent helping remind other people of things that they may have forgotten. I'm going to need you to become Coffee Cup Chuck for me. And I'm going to need you to help motivate other people. It sounded corny at first to me, putting images on the front of a coffee cup and taking those images and creating messages behind those images. It was corny. And I didn't think it was going to pan out. I didn't think it was going to work. But then I started getting those messages in my inbox. You know, I got one in particular. The guy said, hey, last week, and I was going through a hard time, dude. I was like going through it. And your post, it changed everything. I mean, it changed everything, Chuck. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's working. It's working. It's working. So it was working. And guess what that did for me? That told me that I was elevating, I was evolving, I was still evolving. And I thought that was it. God said, nope, it's time for you to elevate again. This message is meant for one platform. I need you on another platform. So that spun off, not the morning blog, not old Coffee Cup Chuck in the morning. It elevated to the actual podcast, where that podcast brings people on, and it helps people with extraordinary talents, skills, people who came through remarkable things. It helps put them on a platform to where the world knows that they exist. That was over a year ago. And guess what? It's still going. I continue to elevate, and I'm still elevating. So God, what you got next for me? What you got next? Because this ain't it. I know it ain't it. He talked to me again. He said, it's not. I need you to keep reading. I need you to keep educating yourself, because your next elevation will be one of your greatest elevations. And I'm going to send every coach, every mentor, I'm sending them all at you, because what I need you to do next is I need you to speak. I need you to tell your story. I need you to get it out there. I'm doing that now, you know. So I say all of this today to tell you this: to apply the X factor to your life, you only need to add the X to all of the things that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. You hear me? Apply the X in front of everything that's stopping you. That's all. You know, I stand here before you today now as an ex-con, an ex-drug dealer, an ex-banger, an ex-procrastinator, an ex-doubter, an ex-dreamer, and most of all, an ex-quitter. Yeah, an ex-quitter, because I stopped quitting on myself. Now, it took me a while to understand it, but you see that cinder block jail cell? That taught me that I was trapped inside of it. You see, I really wasn't trapped inside of the cell. I was trapped inside of my own thoughts. That's where I was trapped, but not anymore. See, I continue to educate myself now each and every day. All I'm waiting on now is for you to join me. My name's Coffee Cup Chuck, the Mindset Maniac, reminding you all that your mind is a terrible thing to waste. Thank you for joining me.
Coffee Cup Chuck in the building. Give it up for Coffee Cup Chuck. That was phenomenal. Man, you brought the house down with that great emotional, inspirational, and you took us on a journey, man. And I really appreciate you being transparent with your story, because your story shows that you can go in deep into the valley, and you can still rise above the mountaintop. Your story shows us that, it was so great. I had to put it in the post. Your story showed us that you can move from incarceration to elevation, and then to, watch me now, illumination. You've got your own electrical company, so each and every day you have the ability to not only physically illuminate your customer's life, you also have the ability to illuminate their mind with your message. So I am loving how you are taking that X factor to the next level. It was phenomenal. What do you want the audience to walk away from your experience today?
You know, that's a good question. And the biggest one, the biggest thing is this, man. You know, you you can always come up with the excuse of why you can't do something. But that excuse, it can easily be changed to the excuse of why you can do something. It all starts. Everything starts from the seed of the thought. Everything. You have to change your mindset. You have to. Because if you continue to stay in that mindset of I'm a go on a diet, I need to lose weight. I gotta lose this weight, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And you keep saying I'm going to do it, you're not doing it. Your mindset is stuck in that I'm a. You have to cross over. You have to put the X in front of it. You have to stop allowing yourself to come up with the excuses to why you should procrastinate. Because, man, Terrence, we don't know how long we have here. We don't know how long of an experience this is going to be for us. So it is important for us to live every day like it's our last day, every day. And the mindset, man, it's there. It's all in the mindset. You have to find a way to trigger your mind to do the things that are going to get you where you want to go.
I love it. And you can put that X in front of so many things, and it can have a negative or a positive connotation. You can either make excuses, or you can become the example. You can either escape, or you can decide to exceed. You can become a recluse. You can excommunicate yourself from society, or you can be the extraordinary person that you were created to be. And I'm glad that you have decided to choose the latter. That incarceration, that ex-con label, you've gotten rid of it. You've shedded it. That person that used to quit on himself, quit on his goals, quit on his dreams, quit on his assignments, because we all have this assignment, but you were quitting on your assignment. You now have put the X in front of that, and you're fulfilling your assignment. And I love the fact that because you are fulfilling your assignment, you are in the right industry, in the electrical industry, because you get to illuminate the world, not only with your hands, but with your mouth. So we appreciate you. Brenda, any thoughts about what Coffee Cup Chuck gave us today?
I love the part of the ex-quitter, because we all quit something. It's easier to quit. But when you put the X in front of that, you are no longer what that was, or whatever it is that you put that X in front of. And it promotes growth. It promotes change, because you are changing your mindset, and you're putting the X in front of it to know not to go back there. Like they used to put the X's on a door if the house had a plague, or
Right,
beware, or whatever. And that's kind of what that is. You put the X in front of it to remind you not to go back.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. So, hey, Chuck, somebody is going to want to have a deeper conversation on how they can put the X factor in their life. how can they get in contact with you to have that conversation?
So they can go to coffeecupchuck.com. They can also go to chuckdoyle.com. They can also hit me up on all social medias. I'm there every Monday through Friday dropping them jewels. And Saturday morning, they can catch an episode of the First Cup KC at 10 o'clock in the morning. Drop some messages in that in the box underneath there. They can also reach out to my agent, 007 in the house, Brenda Ringwood. Yeah, man, book me, man. It's some stuff that we got to talk about. We got to have a conversation, and I'm ready to give it to them. So,
well, you know, some of the greatest messages, some of the greatest information, some of the greatest relationships I've had in life came over a cup of coffee. So I'm glad to include you
damn skip.
into that family. And I love how you gave it to me straight. And now I love how I can take what you gave me, add some cream and some sugar to it, and make it the perfect blend for me. This is Coffee Cup Chuck, you guys. Chuck Doyle. Make sure you check him out. Go to his website, coffeecupchuck.com or chuckdoyle.com. You can get more information about his blogs, about his morning podcast. And hey, maybe you just need a fresh cup of coffee to get a fresh perspective in your life so that you can escape all of your problems and become the extraordinary person you were created to be. Thank you, my friend. We look forward to talking to you. And hey, he's going to be with us in St. Louis as well. Mm-hmm. So you definitely want to register, get your ticket, and get your favorite cup of coffee. Go on over to comechangeyourlife.com and you can see Coffee Cup Chuck live and in person in St. Louis in February 2023. Thank you, my friend.
Hi, Chuck.
Stay positive, people.
Yes, yes, yes. All righty. Well, that puts the lid on the cup, to say the least, for this BTBY masterclass. Brenda, real quickly, what were some of your takeaways from today's masterclass?
The biggest one, I think, is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to have a past, and it's okay to move forward from that. So if you ask for help to get past where you were into where you're going, that is a strength, not a weakness. And if you use whatever it was that was stopping you as that step to move forward towards those goals, you're going to succeed.
Oh, yeah. We want to thank Jean Caggiano for joining us. She said, go farther by taking risks and breaking barriers. We love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Christy Iwuchu, she joined us. She said it takes courage to change your mindset. And thanks for sharing that. That was for Coffee Cup Chuck. Thank you so much for Christy for joining in. You guys, we had a great time. We had Isabel Luz Camacho Black, one of the co-hosts of BTBY TV, and from Felon to Fabulous. She was telling Chuck to speak to us, and yes, he was definitely speaking to us, as well as all of our speakers today. We're doing a great job. Hopefully your pad is full. Hopefully your heart is full. And more importantly, hopefully your mind is full. Now you are ready to take all the knowledge that you've learned today and apply it in your life so that you can become the best version of you. I'm Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge. Thank you so much for joining us today on the BTBY Masterclass. We look forward to seeing you in person in February 2023 at the BTBY in-person conference in St. Louis. Go on over to comechangeyourlife.com. And on behalf of Brenda Ringwood, you know what we say. Wherever you are in the world today, don't just make it a great day, but work on becoming the best version of you, and then you can make it an unstoppable day.
Unstoppable day, that's right.
Until next time, you guys, we will see you on the other side. Take care.
And when we got to the top, he told me to lean forward.